Hello, everyone. This is Defense Politics Asia, and this is Wyatt. This is the open mic for the This is the open mic for episode 4. This is the invite link is actually in the description below. Is actually in the Discord channel, in the announcement channel. So if you all want to join, do come in. Let me close the door. Yep. So let's see if there's anyone going to join. So the topic today is probably going to be relating to Ukraine, the mobilization, the referendum, and of course it's an open mic, so anyone can actually talk about any topic. Can be anything. So the question is, will there be anyone from Discord joining? If not, then I have to find people to join. Do a setup tour. So Cosgo Kovac say asked me to do a setup tour. So okay. So I have 3 cameras, three monitors actually, and then this is actually my microphone, and then I have some tidbits. I eat in the middle of the night. Then my keyboard is actually a Tough Gaming. This is I think a lot Asus one. The Asus one. I have a gaming mouse from forgot what brand is this. Yeah, later I'll be using this Samsung port to actually be my earphone. So yeah, so this is my setup. Okay, my computer. My computer below, which is actually extremely powerful. It's probably as far as you can go, except that the graphic card isn't the most expensive one. So oh my god, is anyone joining from Discord? Let me go and talk to Discord. Dun, 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 dun. See, I need to go to Discord to not ask people to join. So let's see. Let me share screen. Oh, I have one person joining in. Hi, VM.
Hey man,
Hey, let me put
are
in
we
my.
just 2 or are we more?
Tentatively, there's only us.
Low.
Put in my earphone so that there's no echo.
So the rules are camera is always on, so people don't show their genitals.
Yeah, they have to show their face because they need to be
Okay.
responsible for what they say.
You. But it
Yeah.
is possible like to turn it off when I go AFK or something.
Yeah, sure. If you want to, let me connect. Hello.
Hello, I hear.
Still my speaker. Give me a while. Disconnect.
Is Streamyard some kind of new program or something? Because I'm from
This
Germany and everyone is just using Microsoft and Zoom.
Yes. So Michael Zoom and Google Meet, or Microsoft meetings, I think, it's actually for meetings. And if I want to cast it from there, I will need to use another casting software. So StreamYard actually able to combine the screen, the meeting, but it also connects with the YouTube's chat box. So actually, I can actually
Ah,
show people's chat box, especially like super chats. I can actually show on the screen. For example, Drunk Bear say Europe is going to be chaotic next year. So and then both of us can actually see what they say. This is better. So we conquer the screen.
you.
I'm surprised that no one else is joining on Discord. Let me go to
I mean, I saw the announcement like 50 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's already like 10,000 people or something. I'm joining in. We're two.
Yeah.
I think it needs a little bit of time, like to.
Yeah.
I think most of the people who are following your channel, like the tryhard DPA fandom, they're all in the Discord. So I think
and
it
I think
needs 5
and I think
minutes,
some of
10
them don't want
minutes.
to show their face. Some of them don't want to show their face, so they say that if can don't show their face, they will join. But the problem is because this is a public domain, the problem is when people go anonymous, they can be very irresponsible when they talk. Yeah.
Also, they claim, like in the memes, that they're Giga Chat or something, and it turns out to be that they're not Giga Chat at all.
Daniel is back. So
Hey, man.
Daniel was in the open mic in the last session.
Okay.
Yeah. Cannot hear you.
You're
No
muted,
sound.
yes. Is
Daniel,
it going
no
to
sound.
be online on YouTube, or is it just some private fun
No,
part
this
stuff?
is on DPA IRL YouTube. So
Ah.
YouTube, DPA have a few channels. So we have the main channel, and then this is on the IRL
Yeah.
channel. So my plan is actually to put all the open mics, into IRL.
Hello guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
Very
cool,
loud.
cool. So I had some fun last time. I decided why not give it another shot. How are you doing, guys?
Good.
Yeah, I'm great. Like, I'm sitting in
I'm
Germany,
actually
but I think winter is approaching, so I'm enjoying.
Oh yeah, winter will be
Ice
coming
cream, and I
real
will
hard. Yeah, yeah. So
enjoying
you
ice
better
cream and the
get
show.
some logs, get a fire started.
I think
Learn some
to be
basic
honest,
survival. Learn some basic survival in the woods.
like I'm no BSing right now. I think I will buy like a giant box of ramen so I can so I don't starve in the winter, because you need like cheap foods.
Hey,
Because I
you still
expect
need to warm up the water to eat your ramen.
this is the next problem. I will probably eat it like chips, So
uh-huh. Yeah, give
Yeah,
me a
some
while
people do
to
that. So where you from Germany?
yes.
I'm from Israel, by the way. Hi.
Okay, cool.
So how's
So
Israel now? I heard there was quite some chaos with the I think Palestinians. I know there's a lot of
There's always chaos with the Palestinians. I don't really read the local mass media. It's always bullshit. You know how it's in the West. They always invent some new shit. Nothing is true. But yeah, the situation with the Palestinians, there are some good things, there's some positive things. Mostly it's just bullshit. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying Israel is perfect here. Both Israel and the Palestinians have a lot of history here, a lot of bad history here, and we need to find a common language really soon. But you see, it's really
Mhm.
hard. It's really
the
hard.
thing is, how is the war in Ukraine conflicted with Israel? Like, how is
Oh,
Israel doing?
Israel supports Ukraine, not officially, but yeah, the mass media. Okay, can I shut the fuck Discord up? Come on, this
I
is
already
really
turned it
annoying.
down because
Oh, I have a tab open. That's why it's so annoying. Oh, jeez.
the thing is, I'm in Germany and I know we're in deep trouble right now. And the biggest problem I have is people don't realize this. People are not informed whatsoever that the country is going down.
Really,
Like,
really
this is the
fast.
two buildings from 9/11, and this is Germany. Sorry for the jokes on.
Oh yeah, the brainwashing machine works really fine, and
Bro,
in Israel too. No, the problem in Israel is like about 10% of the country's population are Russian speaking, so they understand Russian propaganda pretty well, and that's a conflict of interest because you have Western propaganda in one way and Russian propaganda one other way, and you gotta find the area in the middle. Of course, MSM is not telling any truth here, and people really need to scramble for truth. But most people don't care about Ukraine here. They really don't.
Okay.
The biggest reason Russian speakers, it's quite an issue for them. There are Russian speakers who support Ukraine, Russian speakers who support Russia. I don't know. Generally, in Israel, Russian speakers are more leaning towards Putin, supporting Putin, and less towards Ukraine, because most Russian speakers in Israel are also Jews, and you know how Jews were treated in Ukraine, and we know all this history of Holocaust in Ukraine.
Not only Ukraine, also Russia, right? Like in the Soviet Union, no one liked the Jews.
Yes. Nobody really likes the Jews. Yeah, but what Bandera did, yeah, that's crazy shit. Like if you watch the documentary "The Devil Next Door" on Netflix, it was a nice one. Oh, this person was so disgusting. The Nazis used them to turn on gas in gas chambers to gas Jews. Like the Nazis were too Aryan and German and good guys to kill Jews in gas chambers. Such a horrible way to go, and such a really pussy way to kill people.
Yeah.
How well known is the all this Nazi history, relating to Ukraine, in
If you ask
Israel?
Germany,
how well do they know?
Oh, you mean Israel? Short
both
for
sides?
me, in Germany, zero.
Well,
None.
in Israel, it's more popular with the Russian speakers, the Hebrew speakers. I have no idea. I don't really care.
Yeah, because when I read, when I see the information, it's like there is a lot of history about Ukrainians, helping out with the Nazi Germany's, because they want to gain their own independence of sort to fight against the Soviets, because the Soviets are not exactly good people as well, especially during the World War II time. So
I mean,
they are
not
making
the
use
people,
of the
the
Nazi
regime. Like it's a big difference between people and regime, right?
Yeah, the Soviet leadership, put it that way. So like they are taking advantage of the Nazi German invasion to actually create their own state, which is it's understandable, but they probably also participated in the Holocaust and whatnot, and some atrocities, which is why the Russians now are very pissed off with all this revigoration of the past. But how well known is it in Germany and Israel? I'm not so sure.
Well, you see, Wyatt, it's not so black and white. We can all agree that Stalin wasn't a good guy. Okay, Lenin wasn't a good guy. Okay, mildly speaking, Bolsheviks were pretty hardcore guys. They were killing people left and right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And there is no but here. There were terrible people. But if you look back in history, we see other countries had people not worse. Okay, look at all of history. Okay, the colonialism in America and in Britain, the slavery trade. The people were terrible back then. All right. Now we compare Stalin to today's standards. Okay, it's not relevant anymore, guys. It's not a fair comparison. Stalin was a terrible guy by their metrics. Now, our metrics is just a monster. Okay, but nevertheless, Russia, every country, again, I said it multiple times, has its own circumstances. Okay, in Germany, okay, Bismarck wasn't a good guy. Okay, Hitler is not a good guy. Okay, but they had their circumstances. So did the Soviets. So did the Bolsheviks. No, I'm not a Bolshevik. I'm a socialist, but not a Bolshevik. I'm more siding ideologically with the Mensheviks. But back then, if not the Bolsheviks came to power, there was not Soviet Union. The Bolsheviks were the only ones who could pull this revolution together to get all those people together and industrialize Russia. Because before the Bolsheviks, Russia was a slum. Okay, nobody could read, nobody could write. Everybody were working in the field. Everybody were slaves, peasants. Okay, after the Bolsheviks came to power, yes, many people died. But look at Russia now. Look at Russia now. Look at the Soviet Union, what they did in 50 years. Okay, what they managed to do. That's amazing. They defeated the Nazis, and then they sent spaceships to pretty much every planet in our solar system. Yeah, just because they can. And yeah, that's what I think.
to this extreme ideology like socialism or nationalism, you have
Well,
always like the benefits of it, right?
socialism is not an extreme ideology, my friend.
Yeah,
Nationalism isn't either. Nationalism is not an ideology. Everybody likes his country. It's not an extreme ideology.
okay, fascism.
Yeah, fascism is something different, all right? Fascism is something different. There is a line, though. Yes, continue. I'm sorry, VM.
It's okay. It's open. It's open mic. We can just chit chat. I want to know another thing. VM.
Wait a moment, can I
because
change my name because my name is actually Vlad, so you can be more.
Oh, Vlad.
Yes.
Oh, nice to meet you, Vlad.
Yeah,
Ah,
but
okay.
I joined like from my YouTube Google account, so it's like v.m. So
I think you want me to change it for you? I think I can change it.
I can wait.
You can change, right? Uh-huh.
Because I'm actually
Yeah.
the thing is I'm actually from Ukraine, from Kramatorsk, but 19 years ago I went to Germany. Like I'm no refugee or something, so I have this like this understanding of both cultures. Like I'm an engineer right now, so I'm studying, so I'm not stupid. The thing is, people in Germany they don't understand Russian like zero. In this sometimes pisses me off. And
Nobody does, Vlad. Don't be pissed. Nobody does. Nobody
no,
cares.
I'm not pissed. Like I try to be neutral, but the thing when you start being neutral, like in Germany, they're so biased. They don't know anything about the matter, like nothing.
They're not mad. They don't give a shit, man. They don't give a shit.
That sounds very American.
Yes, and this is like the people don't know that we are going like down the hill. Like
Nope.
you see
People
our
have no idea.
politicians.
People have no idea.
If you compare our politicians to the like evil masterminds like Putin or something, you're like, yeah, it's like playing chess with children. It's like a grandmaster playing chess with children, right?
You say people Putin is evil. Nobody's evil, okay?
No, of course not.
If Putin is evil, everybody's evil. Everybody's fucking evil. Everybody serves their own interests, okay? Putin serves the interests of Russia, and not necessarily the Russian people, yeah, but the interest of current Russia, this current system that they've built, which serves mainly the oligarchs, right? But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, okay? That's the system they've built. They want to have this going, right? Keep going. And they're having a good time, okay? And they want to keep this going. Nobody is evil, okay? No, Ursula von der Leyen is not evil, although she really
she's not evil. She's stupid. This is
yeah,
the difference,
Nancy Pelosi, she's not evil, okay? They're all stupid, right? Okay, but they're not evil. They're just doing their shit, okay? They're getting some money. They're doing their work. Now,
this
Putin
is the first thing to understand, right? There is no good and evil. This is like stuff like Game of Thrones or Rome or like series like that, because they try to make the people to understand there is no good or evil. It's like politics. If you're a politician, you're doing these choices like mobilize and stuff like that. You have your interest. You have like a giant responsibility and stuff. There is no good and evil. If I hear this trash, for example, like. This is evil, we protect democracy. It's always like in these checkboxes, like we're the good ones, they're the bad ones, and like, okay.
Yeah, 'cause
when I start digging, we're not so good in Germany, like the government, I mean, no? Not the people. The people I think are okay, but they're just brainwashed to an extent that when winter hits, we can have this conversation and I can laugh about it, right? But because I'm from Ukraine, I know.
You can send us mail with pigeons or something.
I now heard this to run like with a candle. It's no joke. When I was a child, boom, blackout, like for a whole day. And I run like with a candle. I was a child and stuff. And it was funny. We didn't have phones, computers. What?
Where did you say you're from Ukraine? What oblast?
Kramatorsk.
Kramatorsk. Oh, my mom came from Cherkasska Oblast.
Where is it?
It's between Kiev and Dnipropetrovsk, somewhere around the Dnieper. I'm not sure exactly where. In middle Ukraine.
Okay. So the thing is, like, when I walk around with the candles, I know how this. No food, no electricity, nothing. You have like warm water. My mother used to make like a bath, like with warm water, because after 5 minutes it's just off. We're used to live in deep shit. Like I talked to some
Yeah.
Turks that are from Turkey, and we're laughing. Like when the winter hits, we will sit there and like, okay, we're back in our old, I don't know, ghetto countries, right? But now this
Yeah.
is Europe. Europe, the heart of Europe is fucking Germany. When the shit hits the fan, I don't know what will happen. Do they eat it? Like do the population take it? Does it,
Well,
because they don't realize it. If I
unfortunately,
was in German government,
that the shit already hit the fan. People just don't realize it yet.
if I was the German government, I would already push the propaganda. In
People
terms
will
of,
just people wake up when other people die. Okay, when
yeah,
you see people suffering in the streets, then you can't cover this in the media. You can't paint it any other way. People are dying. Okay, that's a fact. People will die. Okay, you can't hide it
In
from
the cold,
us.
you mean in winter? You mean talking about
In
in winter?
winter, people will die, guys. It's not a joke. It's not a fucking joke.
the
Okay.
problem is same happened like with COVID. Now, after the COVID restrictions and stuff, you see that a lot of people like died from cancer because they didn't have like during the COVID wars, they didn't have like the care that they have, that they needed, right? Because of COVID, we don't have the capacity, right? So the collateral damage started hitting. Same in Germany or rest of Europe, right? It's because of like smaller things, people will die. For example, the older ones. Grandma wants to turn her heater on, not gonna work.
Yeah, something similar happened when the Soviet Union broke apart in '91. Everything fell apart. Everything, absolutely everything. All the government structures, everything fell apart. People
And
didn't
because
know what to do.
the problem is,
People were freezing to death. Millions of people died. By the way, because of the disintegration of the Soviet Union, people are dying till this day. A lot of people die, and something similar may happen to the European Union, the Soviet Union 2.0. All right, a lot of people will die. This massive behemoth of a system will disintegrate eventually. It's not stable, as well as the Soviet Union was.
and this my problem is they're not preparing. Like I don't see it on the streets. I don't see
Neither
life
did
is
the Soviet Union.
normal like ever.
Yeah,
Right?
neither did the Soviet Union. So you notice, empires don't die like they die very slowly but very quietly, and then they go out of the boom in a matter of
You go,
weeks.
yeah,
I
it will
think it
be
will
like
happen in
sudden, right?
steps.
It will be exponential, right? It will be like slow, then suddenly like things start to get very bad very quickly, and then suddenly the whole thing just went to hell.
And I
Yeah,
think it will happen in steps, because first they realize, oh, we don't have electricity. Oh, what do? We turn off this, we turn off that, and then it start to escalate even further, even further, even further, because we are so deep shit. People don't realize that we have like Germany transfers cheap resources from Russia into overpriced products that we can sell and and say like
in
made in
cars,
Germany, right?
they're turning cheap Russian electricity gas into cars. Yes.
Yes, and the thing is, it's a bottom step where the whole system is built upon. Because if you take the energy, people get unemployed. Our
Yeah, they
system
kill
will
the
just
industry.
collapse. They
Yes,
kill the
yes.
industries. If unemployment happen, we can't have the healthcare system cannot handle that. It's already in deep trouble because of the COVID virus, right? And like you take the bottom card of the house, and the whole thing collapses. This is like my point.
Germany without its industry, well, unfortunately, it's not worth much. But you see this trend in the West, the devaluation of their currency. It's mostly points back to America, and the U.S. petrodollar in Germany. Now, China did a massive thing here. Okay, they moved all the manufacturing, everything that gives value to the Western currencies into the East.
They
All
outsourced,
right.
yeah.
The Americans thought they won big time. Yeah, slavery is good. Yeah, capitalism loves slavery,
China also
really,
loves slavery.
yes, of course. I'm not saying no.
Print more
No, I'm
money.
not. I'm not pro anyone here. I don't support anyone
Yeah.
here. China is also doing great things, right? Everybody's doing great things, but everybody's also doing not so great things, so to say. Yeah, so China is doing good with organ trade. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm not saying China is all perfect here. But nevertheless, we're talking about a war, a third world war that's currently going. Okay, it's currently going, or the Cold War has never stopped, right? And it turned into a hot phase right now. Okay, we're actually having a metamorphosis of the Cold War turning into a hot war, and actually World War III right now.
Because the
At least
West, they put the mask like we are friendly and stuff. They put the mask like,
oh no!
and you see the
It's all
skeleton
fake.
behind it. Like,
It's all fake. It's all fake. It's all fake. The West only works for itself. America only works for itself. They're enslaving entire countries just to have their economy going, or whatever they call this, capitalism
yeah,
bullshit.
and Europe is going on with this. Like,
Yeah, Europe believes Americans, even if they don't believe America. Like, even if there is some suspicion in Germany, for example, what can they do about it? They're a vassalized state. Germany is a vassal state of America. They have to do
we are
what
still
America.
occupied
Yeah, you're still
after the
occupied
Second World
by.
War.
Yes, you're still occupied by the Americans, as you were occupied by the Russians. Well, the Americans didn't do this so obviously. Instead of building walls, literal walls around the German people, instead of putting real guards and armed people in tanks, they've built financial walls. Okay, they've built a financial system that enslaves the population. And the Germans, and as most of the West, most countries, don't notice that. You're being enslaved by debt, and something similar happened to Israel too. In fact, Israel has been in the bank of bankruptcy, the dot-com crash, okay, in 2000s, and
But carefully,
the Americans bailed us out. The Americans bailed us out. They gave us a lot of money, but now we're their bitch. Literally, we're their bitch. We do
the
what they
thing,
say.
but also the thing is with Israel. Israel has a lot of influence in the United States, like in terms of
Well, you
banking
might
and
think
stuff.
so. Well,
Germans, not really.
you might think so, but not really. Israel is used in a huge offshore for oligarchs, for American oligarchs. Yeah, there's black money flowing here, gray money flowing here. There's a lot of mafia shit going here. Yeah, Israel is not all rabbits and flowers and unicorns and rainbows. Yeah, but there's a huge scheme here. Yeah.
I lost my track. What was the topic again? Germany is collapsing. Yes, we know. We all
Yeah,
know
the
that.
West, the West
The
is gonna,
Germans don't notice.
the West is gonna get hit pretty hard, and no, all this mass media bullshit. Vladimir Putin does not need nuclear weapons. Okay, he really does not.
Yeah. No.
He really does
The
not.
thing is, like, there are some politicians, like for example, I don't know if you know her, Sarah Wagenknecht. It's like from the left party. She's always loud about like, don't. It's not about Putin. It's about like us being destroyed. You know, this people don't get this. That the economic war is actually hitting us, right? And he's telling that, and the commentators are like, look at this Kremlin. What do they call the? Not Kremlin propagandists, but like Kremlin lobbyists. Yes, corruption. It's not corruption in Germany. It's lobbyism. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you also have oligarchs, man. There's not only Ukrainian or Russian or Belarusian or whatever oligarchs. There's every entrepreneur who's made his money in shady ways. He's an oligarch, man. Elon Musk is an oligarch, man. And Jeff Bezos is an oligarch.
Yeah.
Okay, they're all oligarchs. Okay, they have their own shady business. Look at Bill Gates. Come on, he's a poster child of an oligarch. Yeah, under the
If you
definition
dig
of an
deep,
oligarch, you'll see Bill Gates with his, this pose with a computer. I don't know. That's an oligarch. He's living his life, man.
Yeah, I think USA is pretty smart at rebranding. Everything that is exists in Russia or in any big countries. the oligarchs, the big super magnates, the very rich people that have outsized influence on politics and everything, and they are able to repackage everything to the point where it's okay. Everybody celebrates them. When Steve Jobs died, how many people actually celebrate? Not like mourn his death. They cry and
Yeah, like
what the fuck? He
Stalin.
just
Like,
made the phone for you.
yeah, like fucking Stalin, man.
Yeah.
I was like, so there's something
It's
that I
good
also
they
find it
didn't
very
cremate
amazing.
it. They didn't save his body like Lenin in the mausoleum or something. Like
If
the
they
last
did it
crash.
right, I believe if they did it, it will become a tourist attraction. They will earn so much money from it.
Yeah, the thing is, if you dig deeper, if you dig deeper, what Bill Gates is doing, like he has so much systems under his control because he has the money, like what is called the school system. Like if you control the books, you control the future population, right? If you teach in Germany, I don't know if every school, but like 90% of the schools have like Ukrainian flags all over the place. So the indoctrination has already started, like the retardation. As a kid, I have a choice. Like, do I want to be with Ukraine or don't I want to be with Ukraine? Or do I want to be neutral, for example, right? It's already started. Like, they're beating that in their heads, right? Ukraine, good. Russia, evil. We will die with Ukraine. It's the frost or something. And I'm like, okay. Like, it's so obvious what is going on in Germany right now. And I live in a bigger city. Everywhere you hear it everywhere in this. I mean, Ukrainians, right? Refugees and stuff, and you see them everywhere. They have this fucking flags, like everywhere. It's so overused, overdone. You see it at cars. You see like children wearing Ukrainian socks, and they put it like up so other people can see. So yeah, I'm from Ukraine, and they all talk Russian. I speak also Russian, right? No Ukrainians talking Ukrainian, actually.
Do you also speak
Oh,
some
really?
I don't.
That's
I forgot
surprising.
Ukrainian because I was like 3 years in school. In the Eastern Ukraine, it was like the education system was like Russian and Ukraine are the main languages, but Russian was a little bit higher.
Russian
Everyone
dominant.
talked fluent. Everyone is talked fluent Russian because Russians maybe lives there. In Eastern Ukraine, everyone's like 90% is ethnic Russian, right? But the second language is like English. In Germany, it's like the second language is English, right? It was Ukrainian. And then after that, you learn like, I don't know, German or English or something. So it was like a second language to the Eastern Ukrainians, right?
When you're in Kramatorsk, is it still the Soviet Union times or is it over already?
It was over
Over
already.
already. But it was very poor. The Ukraine then was very poor.
Ukraine is always poor.
Forever
Like,
poor.
But Wyatt, in 20 after the Soviet Union collapsed in 20 years, in 2010, Ukraine has rebuilt very, very, very fast. Okay, there are 3 presidents. I don't remember their names. They have funny names. They did a really, really good job. The Ukrainian hryvnia was almost equal to 1 shekel in 2010. Okay, it's amazing. Ukraine has almost built itself a major player in the European economy. And then
but
the Maidan
wait,
happened. And then the Maidan happened. And
but-
look at the currency now. Look at the currency now.
earlier than that,
They fuckface-
Ukraine
fuckface
was a
themselves.
province. Ukraine was a province of the Soviet Union, and it was one of the most richest provinces
Yes,
because
yes, it was. It was the second
they
most
had
powerful.
resources and they have a lot of industry. They
Yes.
build planes there. We know this because we
They
discussed it.
built spaceships, man. They built spaceships. They were a space power.
They built it like
They were a nuclear power. Think about
they
it.
had yeah, but it was like during the Soviet Union, you had it like Kazakhstan is one province, like Ukraine is another province, right? And
Yes.
after it split it, after the Soviet Union collapsed, the countries emerged. Ukraine was one of the most richest country. This is why a lot of Russian-speaking people from Russia and Kazakhstan all went to Ukraine. But the problem is, Ukraine collapsed. After the
Hi,
Soviet Union
Kormanov.
collapsed,
Hey, are you from the DNR?
after the
Yes.
Soviet
Oh,
Union
yeah.
collapsed, Ukraine also collapsed because corruption took place everywhere.
Yes.
My mother told me like one kindergarten or school after another, closing. One factory closing after another.
It's
Really?
a great strategy.
They took the country piece by piece. Like the oligarchs, they raped the country.
Oh my
They
god.
closed everything and they took all the money and the nation.
Yeah,
became
so they didn't
poor.
take the money, Wyatt. So the people who don't really know the history of what happened, because it was a
Neither do I, actually.
collectivist ownership of everything. Okay, the land, the enterprise, factories, everything, absolutely everything. So when the country privatized, they decided, okay, if everybody owns the country, we will just give shares of everything to everybody. Okay, and everybody received shares of everything. Regular citizens, right? Grandmas. Okay, people who really didn't know what to do with those stock, with the shares. And then people said, okay, you don't know what to do with your shares. Come sell those shares to us for nothing, like for free. Like an absolute free market. Okay, you want to sell your shares? Come sell those shares. We will just take in your shares. Okay, and then they merged those centralized oligarchical systems. Okay, centralized systems which own
So this is after
the country.
the collapse of the USSR?
After yes, in the time after the perestroika, right after the perestroika, all this shit started happening. A massive privatization of the entire country, of the entire union. Okay, and everything was privatized. Okay, and those oligarchs who really had a lot of money. Like, okay, in the Soviet Union, who could be an oligarch, right? A thief. Okay, a scoundrel. Okay, people who didn't make his money in honest ways. Some of them did. Okay, some of them did, but not all of them. Okay, and those who basically mafia guys, they didn't know how to run the country. They still don't know how to fucking run the country, right? Okay, and they got all those steel factories, those energy plants, car manufacturing plants. What did they do? What did they fucking do? They burned this shit. They closed all this. They closed them.
Corruption took place in a
And
big.
corruption took place really hard, and it's
So-
going there till this day. Yes.
So USSR have lesser corruption than modern Ukraine.
I don't know about this. I can't confirm that, but during the USSR, Ukraine, the people of Ukraine were more wealthy than now, for sure. Sure, there are a lot of businesses, for example, in Lviv, Kiev, and Odessa. This is like the major cities, right? But it's like in Russia. In Russia, you have like Moscow and St. Petersburg. The rest is cow country. Same with Ukraine. You have like 3 cities. They're producing money and stuff, and the rest is just not relevant. Okay, they have like a lot of food, but that's kind of it, right? Do you know something that is made in Ukraine? They had like this plane factory that the Chinese tried to buy over, but I think Zelensky said, "No, sir, you're not having this." And the company is like, "Mr. President, we're dying right now," and he's like, "I don't care. We don't trade with Chinese, right?" So the thing is, it was like a bait for a lot of people because they didn't see the Soviet Union collapsing. Same for my father. He and my mother went to Ukraine. Ukraine collapsed. And we were there poor and like, yeah, that stuff happens. But it's like, it's life in Eastern Europe, right? Every day some new shit happens. If you come to Germany, the life is so quiet. You don't have like the adventures you have in Russia, for example. Going out in Russia is already a danger in itself, right? Because so much random shit happens. I hope when Germany collapses that it don't collapse like Ukraine. When they start privatizing everything,
Privatizing, yes.
privatizing everything, I think we will see like a similar picture, right? It would be the same collapse like in the Soviet Union. And the thing is, the Soviet Union, it was held together, but this how should I call it, like dictatorship, right? The European Union is like all of the small countries. If this collapses, they're all on their own. Because the thing is, the Poles hate everyone. They hate the Germans. They hate the Russians. They're on their own. They only like
The
Britons and
Poles are a whole different story, guys. Let's not get started about the Poles.
French and Germany have always had in the European history this rivalry of the modern rivalry now is like who produced the better products, like who's the better exporter. It's Germany right now. When Germany collapses, France is like, yeah, we're number one now, and Italy also, right? And all these German-speaking countries like Austria, Belgium, and stuff, all the surroundings, Switzerland, around Germany, they're so interconnected with Germany itself, right? When Germany collapses, all these governments collapse also, because all the economic relations is just poop.
They will go exactly the same as the Soviet Union did, because in the Soviet Union, every republic was responsible with its own production, like coal, for example, like natural gas, like oil production, agriculture. Every republic has been dealt its own cards. For example, Ukraine has been dealt a very good agriculture card, and why not exploit it? Like in Civilization, you need to upgrade the cards you've been dealt. Now, if you're good with agriculture, okay. Now we can supply you oil, we can supply you gas. Just make us food, Now the system centralized planning is left. It's a very difficult question to answer. Like things for like the Holodomor, for example, in Ukraine. Mismanagement. There was a lot of mismanagement. Eventually, they did figure this out, and not perfectly, but they did. Every republic was responsible for certain things, like Uzbekistan was coal production, metal production. They were also launching spaceships in Kazakhstan,
and also
amazing things.
Nuclear program in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, nuclear programs all over the country. We will supply you energy.
They nuke this country.
just work. Just make steel. Just make cars. Just produce food. We'll take care of you. And then when all this system collapsed, for better or for worse, but now we can see actually for really worse, it needed to go another way. We can agree about that. But you see. Now the system collapsed, and all those countries just were left with nothing. Like we need this energy to make cars, okay? And now we can't make cars. Where did we get the fucking energy from? Okay, they were left in basically in the dark. Okay, how do we go from now? Look at Belarus. They didn't. They are basically like North Korea. They didn't go much from since the collapse of the Soviet Union. They didn't advance much. Okay.
They did advance in the gaming industry.
Yeah, playing professionally League of Legends and having some good YouTube vloggers.
And I also made like all this World of Tanks stuff, right? Like Wargaming, I think, is a Belarusian company.
Yeah,
They became very famous for this, right? So Belarus,
they are
same
very,
with
very
Poland.
rich,
Same with Poland
So-
and the Witcher games. They became like famous because they did a computer game.
I think among all the gaming companies, right? I think Wargaming has one of the biggest marketing budget. They're so rich, like because they don't really need to do a lot more work because the game is already there. People just play. They just add in more tanks or more ships. Then they just keep earning money. They got so much budget because they were my client once before, so it's like I'm amazed by like the one of those clients that they don't really negotiate with you about money. They just say, okay, just do. I was like, wow.
Same with Gazprom. I heard like from a from a colleague of me. He worked on a Gazprom, actually on the how's this the second turbine? How's it called again? The second gas turbine that is now offline. Nord Stream 2. Slips my mind. So he worked on this, and he's like, Gazprom always delivers. They pay shit ton of money, and everything is just going perfectly. And I'm like, what? Russia? Perfectly? What? They deliver. This is a
Reminds
point
me
that
of
people don't
the
understand.
Game of Thrones. Lannisters, like the
Always
Lannisters in
pay
Game
the
of Thrones, right? They will always pay their debt.
They always delivered, and it's like a shock for Germans. Like, oh, Russians are not this Mongol kind of. We go like 100 people into the trenches and die there or something. No, it's a modern country. They know the business very well. When it comes to energy, of course, right? So this is one of the reasons Germans don't get it. Russia isn't the Soviet Union, right? Like
Oh
they
no,
evolved.
no,
They evolved.
Russia is a capitalist country. It's a
Adapt, overcome.
liberal country. If you see how Putin came to be, actually, okay. So you had this crazy drunkard president, like he was nuts. What was his name? Yeltsin, right?
Yeltsin, yeah.
Okay.
Gorbachev, I think. Or you
No,
mean
after
Yeltsin?
no, the first Russian president is Yeltsin, right? If I'm not mistaken. Okay. He was drunk all the time. He was fucked up. He was like Zelensky now. Look at Zelensky. He was doing coke, right? That was Yeltsin doing fucking vodka. Okay, all the time, all the fucking time.
He couldn't go out of the plane. They delayed the interview like for several hours. It's like
Yeah,
it's a typical meme.
Yeltsin,
Because he was fucking
because
drunk.
Yeltsin fucking drinking the plane's fuel. Okay.
He needed like two or 3 hours. They needed to wait for him
Wasn't
because
he,
he was so drunk. It was an embarrassment, right, for Russia.
Okay, and
Wasn't
I
he
think
found
I don't know.
wandering
I
the
don't
streets
think.
of Washington at one point?
Who's talking? Who's talking? I can't.
Kormanov. Again.
I'm talking. Hello.
Oh, you're talking.
Yes.
Oh, hi.
Yes. Hello, Arya. Wasn't he found wandering the streets of Washington at one point when he visited the United States drunk out of his mind?
Probably. I think he was a CIA spy. Honestly, I think it was a double agent. I don't know. I don't know what you think. I don't know. What your theory is. I think he was bought by the CIA. Okay, he was a rat. Okay, it was a fucking rat.
Maybe.
It was getting. Or maybe Gorbachev. I'm not sure about Gorbachev. I have some hope with Gorbachev. Okay, he might have been also a CIA rat. But Yeltsin, well, that's a whole different story about Yeltsin. There's like an 80% certainty he was involved with CIA. And now, how Putin came to be, actually, they didn't think he was anything of a threat. Okay, he was a nice guy. Okay, I think Putin was also involved with the CIA. Okay, okay, it's my theory. It's not necessarily true. Okay. They just didn't see him as a threat. They put him as a clown, as a face to show to the cameras. Okay, like they put Zelensky to the cameras. He's a clown. Okay, he's an actor. So they put this little old KGB soldier. He's a lower height, doesn't look very intimidating, and they thought they could work with him. Okay, because Yeltsin was fucked up. Okay, he was fucked up. Like he was like blank out drunk all the time. Okay, so they put Putin in, so to say, and Putin really, in the beginning of the Russian Federation, the second president of the Russian Federation, he really looked to cooperate with the United States of America. Okay, he looked to cooperate with the West, with NATO. Okay, he really privatized a lot of the industry. He really opened up a lot of ties with the West. But then he saw that the West, actually, in fact, he reaches his hand towards the West like Gorbachev did. But what does the West do? They spit in his face all the time. All the fucking time. They don't want to speak to him. Okay? He has his... Russia has their own security concerns, which get violated all the time. Putin, when he came to power, he got the Chechen war from Yeltsin. He got to deal with the Chechen war. Do you know what a fucking shitfest that was? Okay, do you know the fucking ISIS guys, the crazy radical rapists, child molesters, won the first Chechen war. Okay, they won Russia, and what happened there? Rapes, prosecutions, executions. They tried to build a very toxic, a very bad version of a Sharia state. Don't remember how they were called, the Republic of Chechnya. Not a republic, they were a state then. They wanted to be independent. And then Putin came to power and he had to deal with the shit. He had to fucking deal with the shit. They were acting out terrorist attacks on the territory of Russia all the time. Okay, they took a school one day and they killed like 30 kids, if I don't remember correctly. It was something
300.
terrible. 300.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. Oh my fucking god. okay? And Ahmad Sila, they beat those fucking fuckers, okay? They beat those fuckers. They sent them back to fucking Georgia, okay? They took back Chechnya, and Ramzan Kadyrov came to power, okay? Because his father Ahmad Kadyrov, he passed away as a martyr fighting those scum, those shaitans, okay?
Didn't he change, like he was fighting Russians first, I think? Then he switched.
I don't remember this one. I honestly I
I
can't
think he
tell
was
you. I can tell
fighting
you.
in the first Chechen war. He was fighting the
The first
Russians,
Chechen
I
war,
think.
yeah, the first Chechen war was a shit fest. Okay.
Then they gave him like, you're gonna be the boss if we switch, and he took it. Like,
Yeah. Well, it can still fuck up the Russians, right? If he decides to go Bozo, like I don't give a shit. I want to be a Chechen Republic, but they don't. They don't need to. They don't need to. They're having a very good deal with Russia now.
Kormanov, where are you from?
I am Russian.
In Russia?
In Russia right now, yes. Moscow.
Okay.
Ah,
Almost. Because the flag behind, is very
are they gonna be mobilized? Or?
suspicious.
It's actually from the United Kingdom. I bought it there.
What the fuck? That's so weird.
Yeah, some people in chat say like, yeah, Kadyrov really built Chechnya. Did you see fucking Chechnya right now? Did you fucking see Chechnya? Okay.
Yeah, it looks very nice, right? I think
It's
from
Dubai.
the
It's
videos from
Dubai.
Kadyrov.
It's fucking Dubai. Okay, look at it. It's amazing.
Who assassinated his father again? Ahmad?
Uh,
Who assassinated Ahmad?
Ahmad Kadji, something like this. Kadyrov, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, I think he was killed in a bombing or a terror attack by the other side. I don't remember how they're called. They're terrible people. Like, yeah, the Caucasian ISIS. Something like that.
Caucasian ISIS.
Yeah, the Caucasian ISIS. No joke. It was pretty radical shit. It was pretty radical shit, and they beat those fuckers. They used the terrorists as counter-terrorists. Amazing.
So the Chechnya situation is actually influenced by Georgia. Is it?
Somewhat, but not really. It's two storylines actually. Georgia is a whole different story. Actually, I'm half Georgian. In fact, I'm half Ukrainian, half Georgian, but not really half Georgian. The Soviet Union is very complicated. My father is from Tbilisi.
Yeah.
Now, almost all Georgians, I don't know about the newer generations, all Georgians speak Russians. They speak Russian fluently, right? You go to Georgia, you can speak Russian freely. Now, after the Soviet Union collapsed, Georgia is not an energy-independent country. They need gas, okay? They don't export much except wine, okay, and cheese, and or goats, okay? No, I'm not kidding about Georgia. It's a cool country. It's a beautiful country. Visit Georgia. It's amazing. Really recommend it. But again, they try to go into dealing with the West to solve their problems, and the West used them as naive as they were. Okay, and that led to the Georgian War in Abkhazia and South Ossetia.
And then Saakashvili ate his, how is it called? You know the meme that Saakashvili ate his t-shirt?
Oh yeah, it was like this on stream, like this in CNN or something. He was eating his style, really. He was
Yes.
so tense. He was so tense. He went. He was. The reporter was speaking to him and went like this, like, "I hope nobody's looking."
His necktie, yes.
Yeah, like, we're not live streaming now.
Because shit is getting hard, like the Russians are
Yeah,
coming in and he's like,
the idiot declared war on Russia before
America,
before
don't
it
come
was
to us?
before the time the Americans told him
What?
to. Okay.
America's
Oh.
backdoored us?
He
Left
declared
us
war on
behind?
Russia. He declared war on Russia prematurely, so they couldn't get the propaganda right.
But he didn't declare war on Russia. I
He
think
did.
declared
He declared war on
war.
Russia on live stream, on television. He did. It did.
Yes. Okay.
You can find it on YouTube, man. You can find it on fucking YouTube. Yes.
This is really stupid. Like many other European countries did that, and they all perished. Like People don't learn their history. This is like one of the things that Russia is good in two things. They're good at war and they're good at history. And these two things combined is like
the Russians never forget. That's true.
Like what Putin is doing right now. It's like the Sun Tzu playbook. How's it called? Appear strong if you're weak, and appear weak if you're strong.
Oh, the
He's doing
Russians
this
are really
shit
good at that.
all the time.
Yeah.
The West picks this up as propaganda. Oh, they went out of Kharkiv, blah blah blah. But Putin is playing like 4G chess, and he's like, yeah, okay, I needed this one defeat for my own purposes, like for my own
What do you think, Vlad?
population in Russia.
What do you think? What do you think, Vlad? Did the Russians go out of Kharkiv on purpose, or did they lose Kharkiv?
They retreated. From Kharkiv.
On
They
purpose.
also go even further. Putin needed a defeat for Russia
To scare.
so he can
To scare the republics, right?
not only he needed a defeat to pull. He pulled out of Kharkiv while he was out doing business with other countries. There was like this big meeting with I think with Kazakhstan, China,
Uzbekistan.
India.
It was in Uzbekistan, right? The economic.
And now we come to the 3D chess of Putin. He's pulling out. He's appearing weak. And
No, he's a force. He's a force to be reckoned with. And now the West is starting to reconcile with this fact. Yes.
He appeared weak. He made business. So he's not the evil conqueror. And after he made his decent business parts, 2 or 3 days later, he does mobilization. Russian public is somewhat okay with it. If he did this mobilization, he did it to mobilize.
How's the mobilization then? Because you're from Russia.
What?
I live in a very, secluded part. I live right next to, over there is a recruitment office. So...
What are you doing here?
Do you think you'll be mobilized or are you still...
I think... most of the have you seen this video on I think it was on Telegram where there was a bunch of Chechens in Chechnya lined up to go to the recruitment office. I think it's mostly people from the less how do I sound this without sounding rude?
From the poor regions.
Lower income areas.
Well, Chechny's not lower income areas, but you know what I mean. Places like buttfuck nowhere
Russia,
village
right?
Yeah.
Far Eastern Russia is like
there's videos of people. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just that it like they put like the Far Eastern countries. They are more. I don't want to say they are more wild, but they are less. How's it called? Civilized, right? They are not these big cities where you have to deal like with other big companies and stuff. For example, I'm talking about Moscow and St. Petersburg. You have like two big Russian cities, and the half of the country are only working for 2 cities. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that? Like
I think you meant to say
GDP is like from 2 cities. Mm-hmm. The rest is just cow country and some industry, of course. Everywhere you have everything, right? Mm-hmm. Military industrial complex is also like in the eastern. I think in the Ural behind the mountains and stuff, like well protected. So
I've always wondered why Russia is not more, as I believe someone said that if Russia was always I forgot, there was some quote from the 1800s, but they said if Russia got powerful, it would be if Russia got modernized as, let's say, France or Germany, in terms of having a country with many cities that are industrial and generally not just some shitholes, then it would be the most powerful country on earth. There would be no competition with that.
Yeah, because Russia is the biggest country, right?
It is.
And
but it's very difficult.
It happens to be if you have the biggest country, you have like the most minerals, like, right? It's like a coincidence. The biggest countries have the most resources, right? The United States also have resources, right?
I think the quote you're looking for was from. I think it was from the Kaiser. At the time, yeah, Wilhelm, because he mentioned. At least I remember there was a quote before World War I there was a quote wherein he commented on the urbanization of Russia and how he knew that if they did, then they would make Europe look like nothing at the time.
The thing that is holding Russia back, there are some videos on YouTube, right? It's like the geography. It's always cold. They are on the globe. They're up where it's always cold. You have like tundra, taiga. They have to deal with this, and Russia is so huge and it has a lot of corruption. If Russia were China, they would build like railways so they could connect this whole country and stuff, but they don't do this because of domestic problems, right? So Russia is holding itself back, if you know what I mean, because every country has like corruption and stuff, and country as big as Russia has a lot of corruption. There's like a meme for Russians: if you build a road, like next week the road is just gone because they stole everything from it, right? And sold it somewhere.
It depends where, though, too, because there are parts of Russia. There are parts of Russia that hold themselves in very high regard, right? They hold
Eastern
themselves
Russia,
very
because it's near to Europe.
Yep.
Good infrastructure, everything. Like people are well organized, civilized. They think like Western. And Far East, because Far East you have like the ports to China, like to the Asian countries and stuff. So you have a lot of trade going on there. But
and
the
you've
middle,
got an extremely small
the middle
population.
and the north of the countries, not populated. Like who wants to live in Siberia, right? It's just too crazy to live there. It's like too hot. But if, for example, Chinese populate Russia or other countries, right, and help to build it up, it would be a superpower. Like it's already a superpower, but they lack like this manpower, right?
Mm.
You hear lots of Russians like they have everything, but they don't have the people because they're dying because of alcohol, of historical reasons, right?
Yep.
It's like the cultural stuff.
It's a cultural collapse, is what it is.
The growth is not that good in Russia.
It started with the last generation of the Soviet Union. The generation that oversaw the collapse of the Soviet Union was, I would say, as comparable to modern, like Western generations now, the younger generations now.
It's a lost Alan. It's a lost generation. It's a lost generation. It's a couple of them, a couple of lost generation. Like I might be one of them. Yes.
Probably.
If you follow, for example, Russian propaganda, what they're always talking in the TV and stuff. Kids are good. Make kids. Kids are beautiful. You have so much
of it. The age of the Russian doomer, guys.
There was
you have this propaganda all the time how beautiful kids are and stuff. And here you get money if you get kids. Get kids.
There's a day,
right?
So you're supposed to conceive children on a specific day, and if it's born like nine months later, on like exactly 9 months later, you can win a car or something.
I mean, you get also like mothers get like extra money from the government, right?
You get up to
help their kids
4 million rubles, I believe, depending on the amount of children you have. Is that right?
A woman gets 3 years of birth leave. How was it called in English American?
Maternity leave.
Maternity leave. 3 years, right? A woman has the right to go on maternity leave. In Israel, it's 3 months.
Yeah, in the U.S., you don't have anything. You do not get maternity leave in the U.S.
Oh, that's impressive. Good job.
But in the U.S., you do get company-sponsored abortions, though.
Okay. The contrast.
Yeah, you're thinking forwards.
Would you believe of
big brain time?
Would you believe of the influx of Russians leaving through the Georgian, Finnish, and flying to Turkey? Right, as the
I know. I think it's exaggerated. It's not such a bonanza. Who's leaving? He can leave. Okay, Russia has the right for people to have 2 citizenships, unlike Ukraine. Okay, you can be a Russian and an Israeli. You can live both in Russia and Israel. Nobody cares. Okay, like my wife, for example, she's both Israeli and Ukrainian. Now, that's a problem when she goes back to Ukraine. Ooh, well, she can get in trouble. All right. So if Russians want to leave, they have other citizenships. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Just make sure you get a plane.
I've heard it
There-
described
there are no
as the
tickets.
fifth. I've heard it described as the fifth column leaving the Russian people. Fifth column is kind
Not
of
really.
probably too strong of a description, but a lot of the Russians I do know that still live there are saying that the people who are leaving should be leaving because they don't want them there.
How come?
I heard it's mostly IT guys and programmers because they can do business now with USA and Europe.
It's a business thing.
Yeah,
This is one of the things that
it's
you
gonna be a brain drain. I think they're gonna lose a lot of.
one of the big smart things that US is doing. They are, I say, importing the people from other countries because they have the big companies and they say, if you want to make money, come to America. Same with China. If you're a really good programmer, for example, a lot of Germans are working for Chinese companies, and they're working on big boy projects with big boy money. They don't go back. They earn so much money, they don't need to go back to Germany. They're okay with China. If you have like a lot of money in China, it's a really modern country, right? Russia needs to up their, I don't know, IT game or something. Like
No,
think
Russia's
they gave
Russia's
to
Russia's
compete
IT
with
game.
US.
No, Russia's IT game is pretty up to par, man. They have one of the best exports of their economies. IT guys.
No, we're
Okay.
literally like the kings of fucking pirating fucking Photoshop. So
No, Russia is strong with IT. It's no slouch. No slouch.
Yeah, also Belarus and Ukraine, right? Because you
Yeah.
don't have a job. If you have a computer, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's
In your free
programmers
time,
and IT
so-
guys working for free for the West. Like, come on, I can get an IT guy from Russia or Ukraine for how much? $300, like $400. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke.
What actually I'm seeing a lot of some of my family members who I'm here in the US and my family immigrated here in the 90s, but some of my family members have gotten jobs here in the US, like remote jobs, and then moved back to Belarus or moved back to Russia, and now they're making American money while living in Russia. So
Yeah, that's a good one.
it's an interesting play, but I don't know how popular it is amongst the Russian people.
It's possible, man. If you can have two citizenships and can get yourself a high-paying job or a decent job, you can work remotely in a Western country,
Yep.
and then move back to Russia, okay, where living standards are like a lot cheaper than in America or in Europe.
Because in the
Okay.
US, if you make $50,000, $60,000 a year, right? That's middle of the line. That's actually a little bit under average.
And yeah, and
$60,000.
you're barely living in the U.S.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it depends where. Depends.
Yeah,
where.
it depends where. Pretty much, it's all the same. $60,000 a year is not a lot of money.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. But in Russia,
But if
But
you
in
make
Russia, man.
$60,000 a year,
Bro,
in
this is a
Russia-
lot of money.
in Russia, that's a lot of money. That's a
Yeah.
real lot of money. That's a shitload of money in Russia.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Wyatt, you're
what's
muted.
your thoughts on the
You're
exchange
muted.
between Azov and that oligarch guy from Ukraine?
Again, can you repeat the question? I didn't quite get it.
What's your thoughts on the exchange from the Azov guys and that Medvedchuk guy or whatever he's called?
It's
Wyatt,
it's all
you're
a
muted.
game. It's all a
Muted.
game. He said what does everyone think about the
Wyatt is
exchange
still
between Medvedchuk and the Azov commander?
Wyatt, still muted. Yes, still
Oh,
muted.
sorry. I just realized. Oh my freaking god! No, I don't think the news is confirmed, right? The Medvedchuk guy is confirmed already. They only rumored that he will be part of the exchange, but I didn't see confirmation that he is part of the exchange. At least not of the last summary update. Do you see any sources? I don't think I saw it.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah,
Well,
because
I mean,
they
the Azov guy
rumored.
exchange, the Azov guy change happened. Though Aiden also.
Yeah, I think they released the Popapenko, or the leader of the Azovists.
No, what do you know? What do you think? Did Aiden also get executed? There were some conflicting reports. He was executed. It was traded back to England.
No, they're in Turkey, I think, till the end
Yeah,
of the
I heard
war.
they sent them to Turkey.
to Turkey.
So
Okay, so it's not
so the information I get is that they are to stay at Turkey all the way until the end of the war. There is this information is reportedly said by Erdogan himself, but I didn't see the source. I only saw the information. So Erdogan made the deal. So this Azov commanders will have to stay in Turkey until the end of the war. But I'm not sure what is the exchange. You see, I'm not sure what is the valuable thing that they in exchange for such a high target people to be.
I saw that Gherkin was very angry.
I heard that there were rumors that the exchange was actually for some of the frozen funds that Russia had abroad.
Interesting. But Turkey is the people that is doing this mediation. So I'm not sure how do they can allow this thing to happen.
Or Saudi Arabia?
But the thing is, this benefits Ukraine. It doesn't benefit Turkey. So Turkey must get something else in return, and likely they get something in return from Ukraine, not from Russia, because they are helping Ukraine to get this high-profile people out of Russians capture prison. So Turkey must be getting something from Ukraine, and Ukraine and Russia and Turkey must be giving Russia something so valuable that Russia will give up all this high value target. And someone for DPR to give them up. DPR would want to execute these people as fast as they can.
I wouldn't look at it that transactionally. These countries benefit immensely just by being in the room and being perceived as global peacemakers and brokers. Look at the position India's in right now. They've got Modi meeting with Putin and Jaishankar meeting with Zelensky. And probably the best chance for a ceasefire comes out of those two guys. I mean, that would immensely boost India's position internationally as a peace broker. It would put them in a terrific position to play for what they've always wanted, which is a permanent seat on the Security Council. And just being in the room making these deals is a huge benefit in itself. I don't think you have to look narrowly and transactionally for them getting a payoff out of facilitating a deal.
It's just diplomacy, right? Erdogan is always trying to be like this snake between the both, between the East and the West, right?
That's the perfect
and the
description.
thing is, we are missing this sort of politicians. For example, Merkel also, he was always a snake between Russia and United States, right? United States always criticize, oh, you built a gas pipeline here, you don't spend much money there. Yeah, I know. I want to do business with both sides, right?
The excuse is, but I'm helping my people. I'm helping my people. So don't judge me. That's the excuse you can see from these politicians.
The fall of Western faces, like as diplomats, enables nations as India and stuff, and Asian countries like to rise up and do the job for them, right? To make diplomacy. But diplomacy failed so horribly in this war, right? This one didn't need to happen, right?
There was no diplomacy. There was no diplomacy. Absolutely not.
One thing I wonder about is, where is Merkel? I mean, Merkel's a senior stateswoman. She would think to be the first person you would put on a plane to go and talk to Putin. Where is she?
No. She has had her shit. She's had her shit. She's out of it. She's out of it. She knew. Of course she knew. She knew all of this was going on. She knew. She just said.
She's an old school politician, bro. Like 16 years of politics.
She knew where all this shit was going, and she said, "I've had enough. I've had enough."
She got out in time. Like she already know that you guys see the tsunami come, right? Then she quickly get out in time. It's like, oh, I'm not going to deal with this shit.
Yeah.
So you think she ruled out an ambassador or envoy or any of that when she left? She said, "Don't call me, guys. This is your problem."
Or otherwise, she was not. She didn't leave. She was left off.
There's rumors that Merkel is working somewhere for the government behind the scenes. I don't know. I can't confirm this, but she's still in the business, baby, right?
Yeah, what should you? What is she doing?
I
She
think
can't be doing
in March or in April, Merkel got on the stage and she had a speech like, "Oh, Russia is bad, blah, blah, blah," and stuff. But she tried to be like more neutral, some sort of neutral, right? Because I think it was April or something where Ukraine was pretty hard losing. They're losing ground like every day, one village after another. And then I think the Western power said like, Merkel, do something. And Merkel like, nah, my head's not tight. She gave the speech and then she never to be seen again, right? She had one speech and people thought, oh, Merkel maybe is coming back. Maybe Scholz,
No.
Greens, Merkel's coming back again. No. I think he had her opportunity, but she said, nah, I can handle this shit. I can handle this mess. I would say.
She's had enough. She was the last politician of Germany to give a fuck. Nobody gives a shit.
And Scholz, you see it in Scholz's eyes. If you watch Scholz's interviews, it's like a boy that is always scared because he looks up, the eagle stares at him, and the bear stares at him, and he's like, I don't want to die. Neither way, if he goes full west, he will die because his land is just suffering, no resources and stuff. If he goes east, he loses his face, right? Because they committed so much to the east. Scholz is like, it's just.
Hey, maybe he needs to ask Merkel how to be neutral, for God's sakes.
I think a very big risk that we're facing in this upcoming
Erdogan is a scum. Okay, don't ask him anything.
But he's stupid. This is the point. Nobody likes him because he's playing both sides all the time.
Yeah, because he's smart. Nobody likes him.
Bro,
but fuck
he's
him.
trying to do the mediator in the Ukraine war, but selling like hundreds of fucking drones that are killing Russian soldiers. Like these drones destroyed so much tanks and stuff, and Putin like, oh, you try to be the mediator. People are dying right now by Ukrainian drones.
Do you remember the time of the Syrian war where Turkey had downed the Russian military plane?
Yep.
Yeah, he shot down a freaking fighter, and then Putin, everybody was like, just.
No, wasn't it? It was a bomber. It was a bomber. It was a supersonic bomber.
Su-24,
I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Wasn't this because Russians violated the Turkish airspace or something?
No.
Because this was kind of narrative here.
No.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
He was very close to the border, so I think the F-16s was flying towards them, and then I think the plane maybe just
wasn't it Sam? It was a surface to air missile, wasn't it?
No, it's a fighter jet.
It was a fighter jet.
From my memory, it's a fighter jet.
Okay.
So I was like holding my breath. Like, what will Russia do to Turkey? I was like, they would have gone to war for just one fighter, right? Then in the end, Putin did nothing. I'm so surprised. That's where I learned about Putin's patience. Where
he did sanctions, right?
There was
and then he rolls them off because
he
said like no travel to Turkey. I think it was like for 2 months or something. No travel to Turkey, and it's a big business for Turkey. It's a big business.
I remember Erdogan being like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." I think it wasn't. I think it was a NATO decision. It was a NATO decision to take down this plane, not the Turkish army.
I think this point was not.
The thing we need to remember about a lot of Western governments is they're run by Western people, right? And the culture is so deeply ingrained that you cannot admit that you are wrong, that it's going to risk the lives of a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. There's a real cultural barrier in the West, maybe because of the gotcha culture in media, that admitting a mistake, even in journalism, we see one of the reasons we have such terrible coverage of the war in the West is they simply will not admit and correct a mistake. So we get a flood of impressions that prove out to be wrong 2 weeks later, and no one corrects them. And then as a result, no one trusts what they hear in the media about anything. And
No,
that
now
has to-
you're lost, and now you're lost in your own propaganda. You don't know what to believe.
You can still go on like Western news news sites from news from 3 months ago. Nothing's changed. They'll still say that some specific event happened. We all know it didn't happen, and then it's like, well, doesn't matter. We're going to keep the article up. We're going to just pretend like nothing happened.
Exactly. And that has tremendously negative consequences. I mean, one of the things about authoritarian regimes is if they can create uncertainty that you have the facts, they can inhibit action, and then they can just keep the status quo and authority going no matter how oppressive it is. So to not have a free press is very frightening. I find that I have to watch Indian free press or neutral countries. You can still get a pretty lively exchange
Or
from
DPA.
here, right? But I mean, at some point, you need the institutions of journalism. Like the beginning of the war, Republic News and WION from India, they each sent like 8 or 12 correspondents all over Ukraine to actually publish it. And that's just not happening from the Western world. They're sending people to this mythical place that doesn't exist called Kyiv. It's 2 syllables in both languages, by the way, Kyiv in Ukrainian and Kiev in Russian. But if you hear people saying Kyiv, just turn it off. These are people that literally are getting only propaganda. And they sit in hotel rooms, they read press releases from the Ukrainian government, and then they never correct it when those turn out to be false or exaggerated. That is not really going to help the diplomatic situation. It's not going to settle things down, and it's going to convince Russians that the media is genocidally inclined to value Russian Orthodox lives in the Donbass at 0. And if that's what the Russians believe, then they will potentially go nuclear if a boot sets foot in the Crimea. They're not going to let 80, 90% of the population be treated like unpersons whose lives count for nothing.
Yep. A quick question. How many of you guys here live in a Western country? Or
I don't know. Does Israel count as a Western country?
Sure.
I would say so.
Yeah,
It's under the
right.
Western umbrella
How-
for sure, right?
I think Singapore is a
many-
Western country.
How many, I live in the US, so there is almost nowhere you can go. I can go drive down my neighborhood right now. I can go drive down the street. I know for a fact there's maybe 3 Ukrainians in my neighborhood. There are 15 Ukrainian flags outside of people's houses.
Yeah.
These people, when they found out that my family came here from Russia, we got a letter on our door. Someone left a letter in front of our house saying, hey, by the way, I'm really sorry that your government is being so evil. I think you guys have someone to talk to. I'm like, I live here. It doesn't matter.
It's ridiculous, bro. We had
I know a
Russians
Ukrainian girl. I know a Ukrainian girl. She lives down the street. She is fluent in Russian. She has spoken Russian her whole life. Her father is Ukrainian. Her mother is Ukrainian. They moved here. The war started, and she just stopped speaking Russian. Just doesn't speak it anymore. If I see her,
English,
I'm sorry.
So what she speak? So what she speak now?
Ukrainian and English.
Yeah, a very broken version of Ukrainian too. Yes,
I guarantee it.
because the Ukrainian is a very hard language.
Yeah.
Trust me.
She goes to college, right? There's in the college I go to, there's a Russian club. There is a Russian club in my college. Not a single person is actually like Russian. They're all like pro-Ukrainian. There's Ukrainian flags everywhere. It's everywhere. It's the propaganda is. We can talk about it face to face here. We can talk about propaganda has such an effect on people, but you live with it every second of your life. I walk out my house, I see Ukrainian flags. I go to the store, they have Ukrainian flags in the windows. You go to school, they have pro-Ukrainian propaganda playing on the screens at the school.
No, but me, I'm not that bothered by Ukrainian flags like in Israel.
No, I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. But I completely agree. It's just that it's the mass coverage of it all the time with no pause.
There's nothing wrong with Ukrainian nationalism. Actually, Ukraine is a
No,
nice country.
I agree completely.
But what you mean is the propagandization of this Ukrainian nationalism, this radicalization of this. That's the scary part, and they completely overlook the really but the bad parts, like the Stepan Bandera shit.
They don't
overlook it. They just don't talk about it. It's like
That's
doesn't
pretty
exist.
central.
One eye is closed. Ukraine is a
That's
democracy,
central,
and I'm
right.
like, what the fuck are you talking about?
No, Ukraine is not a democracy now.
I don't
No,
see
of
how
course
you
not.
get around that,
But
though.
neither is
Like,
Germany,
ultimately,
so what does it matter?
Well,
How
CR,
does
go ahead. Go
how
ahead,
does
CR.
how does a country look in its entire history, which is, arguably 1,000 years, and then pick a figure to represent its national ambitions and virtues, and then come up with Bandera? I find it incredibly difficult to believe that that's not a manipulated decision by people with an agenda to cause a post facto Soviet civil war. We know the CIA was encouraging the very toxic kind of Ukrainian nationalism that identifies with racial purity and Nazism. We know that they pushed that in the 50s and 60s and 80s and 90s. And they created a thing now, a kind of a monster, the same as the Mujahideen kind of became the Taliban in Afghanistan, where they're kind of out of control of it. And if you look at school textbooks, if you look at children's books, if you look at the camps, you find this incredible reinforcement of, and there's it's really hard to characterize this without sounding racially prejudiced. All I can really say about it is my own grandparents come from Zaporozhye, and they always referred to it as Russia, although they were German Mennonites. And when you look at the ethnic diversity of the place, say in 1917 and today, it's markedly different and markedly less. The German Mennonites wiped out, the Crimean Tatars scattered, the Jews wiped out, the Roma wiped out. You have to ask why this happens. And one of the reasons it happens is because there's a distinction between the Ukrainian Orthodox notion of Slavicness and the Russian Orthodox notion. Right back to Novgorod, where Nevsky says, I'm going to ally eastward with the Mongols because all they want is money and tribute. And I'm going to fight the genocidal crusaders coming at me from the west. Nevsky creates a border on Lake Peipus that's there to this day between Russia and Estonia. In the south, what happened, though, is the Kievan Rus in the south fight the Mongols. They kill their envoys. They get into conflict with them. And really ever since, for like 800, 900 years, the Ukrainians have kind of been the serfs or the stooges of the West, willing to fight eastward on Western orders. And the Russians are defined since Novgorod and Nevsky as the people who make the alliances east and resist the genocides from the West. And that was true in the Crusader era. It was true in the Nazi era. It's probably true in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. It's an extreme oversimplification of history, but we seem to see that pattern deliberately reinforced by the people who emphasize that the Ukrainians are the pure Slavs and the Russians are the mixed race ones that went too far eastward. We hear it every time you call Russian an orc.
Yeah, they're the same people. They're the same people. No,
they are, but the mythology says they're different.
It's funny how it actually happened, that distinction, because before the Bolsheviks came to power, before the revolution, there wasn't really a one Slavic people, a one Slavic conglomerate. They were all speaking their own Slavic languages. Like, they had their own scripts, they had their own, pretty much a distinct language, a Slavic language. And the Soviet Union, which came to power, had to unionize all those peoples, all those ethnic groups, all those languages into one Russian language. Now, they grossly simplified the Asian Slavic languages. Yes, they simplified the Russian language, the Slavic languages, when we have this modern Russian that we speak today. But essentially, Ukraine, they're inspired by older Slavic languages, but they're not an old Slavic language, okay? They have their historical roots, of course, not saying not, but Russian is actually, so to say, a simplified Ukrainian with huge quote marks, right? But there's not really two different peoples here. There's the Slavic peoples, and there's much of the East speaks Russian. Okay, they're not even Slavs. They speak Russian. Look at the Uzbeks, the Kazakhs, the Georgians, the Armenians. They speak Russian, man.
The Russian identity
But
isn't
also so
confined in any way.
No. Armenia don't speak Russian. Armenians speak Alpha, if I'm correct. They speak
Yeah,
Alpha.
but many Armenians speak Russian. A lot of Armenians speak Russian. In the Soviet Union, all of Armenians spoke Russian.
The Armenians who live here near me all speak Russian. To me and my family.
Germany too. Most
Yeah,
of
in
them, not
Israel,
all,
in
but
Israel
most of
too.
them.
In Israel too.
So many fact checking. Oh my god.
Right, but
Is that you
Daniel,
cannot say anything wrong here.
but Daniel, I agree with you completely that it's a complete mythology to say that they're different genetically. Whatever, lots of it emerged. 70% of people in Ukraine had relatives in Russia, etc. But when you look at who's creating an ideology of division, you very often see that image of like Mongolized Asian hordes from the east, mud people, orcs, whatever the Russians are supposed to be that is different. And it's always been possible,
The same thing
I
can be
think,
said about the
unfortunately.
Ukrainians. Excuse me, the same
But
thing
yeah,
can
of
be said
course
about
it
the
could be,
Russians.
but I'm
Was,
just
yeah,
the Russians
Russian
don't
refers to the
say that
Ukrainians as
about the
pigs.
Ukrainians. The Russians don't. There's a statue of Shevchenko, the poet, in St. Petersburg. Nobody harasses it. And in Ukraine, there are statues of Bandera. I think that sends a very different
Yeah, I
message
agree
about
with you.
how they view each other.
If I was like a Ukrainian president or something, I would be embarrassed to have like a fucking fascist, a Nazi collaborator. Like if you do this thing in Germany or something, what the hell? Like I would be embarrassed. Like the sacrifice that the Soviet Union, like it or not, that the amount of people just died there in this senseless war of ideology, right?
That's another part of the fake history, is that somehow the Soviet Union is something that Russia does to Ukraine. I mean, it's a lie. Khrushchev is a Ukrainian. Brezhnev, actually, I think, is too. Khrushchev was also very influential in Ukrainian policy under Stalin.
Didn't he run Ukraine?
He ran it completely in the Second World War.
Yeah,
did.
Stalin was Georgian, man.
Stalin was Georgian. So this mythology that the USSR is something that Russia does to Ukraine is a pure lie.
I think it's fair to say that Russia is the only successful multi-ethnic nation. I think it's fair to say that. Yeah, really, I think it's true. Russia is the only multi-ethnic nation that has succeeded in history.
I guess
I honestly don't.
That's a time scale thing. That's all time. Time based.
What do you mean by time?
Like, yeah, 100, 200, 300 years, it's not a huge time scale.
Yeah, like look, for instance, the United States of America has been around since 1776 and has barely been capable of integrating its African American population.
Like,
Well, Russia has conquered.
The amount of ethnic groups that lived under the Soviet Union, it's no joke. It's hundreds. It's hundreds,
Yes,
maybe thousands.
Yeah.
It's still almost 100 in Russia. I think it's 85 different ethnicities.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
But everyone's fighting now, like Tajikistan and whatever the other country, and now we have Russia and Ukraine. It's a shitfest, I think.
Well, that's.
But even just in the Russian Federation itself.
That's a good segue.
Even just in the Russian Federation itself, right?
Yeah, Russian Federation itself. What's going on there? But also, it's a good question: is why is everyone starting to fight all right now within the last month? You got Tajikistan and
Armenia.
Yeah, you got Armenia. You got
because Russia is weak.
Of course, yes.
For the same reason Pelosi goes to Taiwan, and the same reason that Kosovo flares up, and the same reason that Greece is fighting with Turkey, because everybody who benefits from conflict is trying to create second, third, and fourth fronts.
Monsieur, where are you from?
Who?
Who, Monsieur?
CR?
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Where I am?
Yeah. Where are you from?
I live in Nova Scotia in Canada, on the East Coast.
Hey, East Coast, man, let's go.
I think also to know.
And I'm pretty close to
a. Okay.
I'm very close to a NATO base.
Okay, just a note. So when you talk, right, you just finish your whole sentence, because I believe there is some latency between the different people. So if not, you guys will be keep speaking together at the same time, because you are trying to wait for each other. So just finish the whole sentence. If we cannot hear, no, you will repeat again. Yes, that's all.
So,
Carry
I
on,
want,
Hi.
okay. I wanted
Greetings.
to note something.
Hi, Adam.
Yeah.
Everywhere
Hi.
where it's borders, there will be war or some sort of conflict, right?
no.
No,
You're searching
not
for one?
necessary that.
Not necessary, but for example, like this nearly constructed borders, Armenia, Azerbaijan, for example. When Russia, when the Eye of Sauron is turning to Ukraine and they have to work there,
No,
all
that's not
these
true. I'm
small
sorry.
nations see, okay,
I'm
Russia
sorry.
is
I'm
busy
sorry.
right
I'm
now.
sorry. I'm sorry. Vlad, I'm sorry. Like Armenia and Azerbaijan have been fighting since the fall of the Soviet Union, and they have been fighting since the day of the Sassanid Empire, if I'm correct.
Old scars,
But-
old scars, you know. The Eye of Sauron is moving somewhere else, and the old scars in Azerbaijan
I
and
guess,
Armenia, like, okay, we have time now
Marouane,
to finish
Marouane,
this
where are you
off.
from? Where are you from? Marouane,
I'm from Morocco.
Morocco.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'll bring some levity. I'm from the Czech Republic. Please raise hands who knows where it is, because many people do not know. Okay.
Yeah.
Czechoslovakia.
Very geographic, high level.
Czechoslovakia for the win, guys.
Yeah, the saddest story in World War II.
Yeah, and probably the best story with two states divorcing.
Yeah.
Yeah, who
It
supported?
was
who
very
supported-
peaceful.
Who supported the Nazis more, Czechia or Slovakia?
Slovakia.
Slovakia.
Yeah, they eventually became independent for
But they
for
both,
the time.
but they both supported the Nazis, right?
Well, the the Czechoslovakia just surrendered basically because we were. It is thought we were like Poland. We were betrayed by the Britain. They kinda promised they will help, but they said, "Oh, we will not help. Well, help. You are on your own." And so the government was like, "Okay, so we'll just surrender because we have no chance." Because that would be a horrible war, like we see this one, the Ukraine versus Russia. We would probably.
There were both Czech and Slovak death squads, right?
Yeah, we were together. There was several times switch between federation and states and other forms of government, but yeah, in the beginning we were Czechoslovakia, one state, two nations.
Yeah.
Yes, my understanding of Czechoslovakia during World War II was that they have no tanks, right? They only have cavalry, so they tried to stop. Is that Czechoslovakia?
Yeah.
No, they had very good tanks actually. The Germans, who when they took Czechoslovakia, one of the huge benefits they got was what became the Panzer 38T, which was a very advanced design for its time that was Czech. In fact, many
they had large factories there.
Yeah, many historians think that the Germans really could not have successfully conquered Poland and France if they had not got those tanks from Czechoslovakia. So it's a pretty critical moment in the diplomacy.
Yeah, there wasn't many tanks, but there was a ramp up of production. So the industry was preparing. They were developing prototypes, and so they just continued after the takeover. But it is said as that even Czechoslovakian guns, especially cannons, not self-propelled but towed, they made before the Second World War. They still killed American soldiers when they were liberating Europe.
Yeah, it was a very huge advantage to take the Czech technology and then scale it up using German industry. The Panzer 38T kind of provides the template for the 4 and the Panther and whatever that comes later. So Germany's whole armor and artillery advancement is increased significantly by the Czech technology. As to the diplomacy of it, that happens in 1938, and it's also something worth saying, especially to people who are Poles, that they often get this history a bit skewed insofar as to blame Stalin or the Soviet Union for signing the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is really kind of bogus when you consider the West had signed 20 deals with Hitler, 20, including Czechoslovakia's division, including letting Austria be absorbed by him. And so Stalin, really, it looked like the whole West was uniting against him, and he had to have a partner that he at least had some deal with in the West, and Germany was the one. So Stalin is the 21st deal signed with Hitler to divide land in the East. So the West really is much more responsible for the rise of Hitler and his takeover than is Stalin. He's facilitated at every level by the West.
CR,
Yes.
if you were like a Western leader back then, how will you have handled Hitler?
Well, I think ultimately there was a rational and reasonable side to Hitler's demands, and then there was a very
what was the reasonable demand that Hitler wanted?
Okay, the most reasonable thing that Hitler wanted was a reliable land corridor to East Prussia and for Danzig to remain a free city as had been guaranteed in the treaties. This is ultimately the sticking point that sends him to war with Poland, right?
Danzig war, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and the Sudetenland and Austria, I don't think those are reasonable demands, but there were constituencies, especially in Austria, that wanted that union of German-speaking people. So it's hard to say no when you actually have an active Nazi movement in Austria trying to hand the state to Hitler, and Hitler was himself an Austrian. So I don't think we could have done much to stop that.
Okay. Now there's another parallel I would like to point out. Danzig, it was a free city, right? But it was also under the command of the Nazi regime. It was a free city that was governed by a Nazi. That's why it was easy for the Germans to conquer them. Danzig, it was actually.
Well, yeah, of course they were agents, right? Everybody had agents, but I guess
they
you're
were not
asking
agents. No, they were not agents. Danzig were not agents. They were actually Germans that elected a Nazi representative. It was governed by a Nazi, but under the control of Poland.
I understand that, but the treaty still says, regardless, that it was supposed to be a free city. And you don't get to just change that because you didn't like the results of an election. So Poland actually handed the premises to Hitler. Now, you asked me what I would do different. Here's my answer. I would have forced Poland to adhere to the Danzig Treaty. Hitler at one point offered to build an elevated highway all the way to East Prussia.
Yes, that's true.
I would have drawn the line at Czechoslovakia and certainly at acquiring the tank factories and technology. So I would have, rather than let him have Czechoslovakia and fight in Poland, I would have tried to settle the Polish situation and draw the line at Czechoslovakia. And then you might have contained Hitler to a much more local capacity to wage war than he ended up with.
Okay.
Now,
well, it's also very interesting. How far back do you want to go? Because there's a ways you could have handled the end of World War I that would have simply prevented the rise of Hitler in the first place. You could have had, instead of the absolute gutting that was handed to the German people in the mid-20s, you could have handled that situation completely differently. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I know how that could have happened, but there is absolutely reasonable ways. For example,
Alan, I think Hitler was a black swan. If there wasn't a Hitler in Germany, there would have been a Hitler in France. Okay, there would have been another Hitler. There would have been a Hitler in England. Okay, and not in the 40s, in the 30s, and the 50s.
I agree.
Okay,
I agree.
Such a radical guy could have come in that day and age from everywhere. Fascism was a popular ideology. It was everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
It's still a popular ideology.
Czechoslovakia. There was before there was the original.
I'll turn on my webcam.
Original
hey guys, I'm so
political
sorry.
parties had similar ideas to the fascism. It was just
But
fascism light.
Just on a specific historical fact point, right? We can try to blame the Nazis on the Treaty of Versailles. John Maynard Keynes actually did. But there are 4 more treaties that happen in the East. One failed treaty that breaks up the Ottoman Empire that they resist and which causes the war in which Turkey and Greece fight over Anatolia. Then there's the broken Trianon Treaty, which breaks up Austria-Hungary. and the Brest Treaty, Lavos. There's 4 treaties that fail in the East. And fighting war, horrible war, continues from 1917 really to 1922 in the East. And I would highly recommend what is a great YouTube series called The Great War, and it goes through every week at the 100th anniversary.
Is it run by Indy Nidal? It's the author his name is Indy.
Yeah, that series.
I know. I highly recommend it. It's very good.
Yeah, it's amazing if you want the depth. But one of the quick precis is that the wars, the kind of genocidal wars to define ethno-state in places that used to be empires, begin right away. The Poles and Germans war over Silesia. Lithuania is a brutal war. There's communist factions. There's fascists blaming Jews for communism, genociding Jews all through Eastern Europe, including the 2 Ukrainian republics that formed. And one kind of unpleasant way to state it is that the 2 Western Ukrainian republics are so busy competing to genocide Jews that they don't stop the bandits from taking over Zaporozhye, and they don't stop the Tsarists from coming up from Rostov and conquering them, and they don't stop the Poles from conquering Lvov. Like, it's a horrible situation. The Red Army is the least genocidal, and it is the best at unifying the minority ethnicities, and that's really why it wins. And that's how modern Ukraine SSR gets formed by the Kharkov, easternmost of the 3 Ukraines, takes over from the failed Ukraine republic that have been defined more like ethno-states, and defeats the Tsars, defeats the Poles, draws a hard line, and then you have the Polish-Soviet War. But it's terrible. The Poles are even at war with the Lithuanians, who they used to be in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth together. Latvia and Lithuania are horribly interfered with by the British, who are helping the Tsarists right up till 1922. The war that continues in the East is worse than World War I in many respects, especially with respect to ethnic genocide. And that's the horrific history that's going on.
I believe that 21 million people died in Russia between 1917 and 1922, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
21 million. Yeah, 21 million. More people died during the Russian Civil War than during the Great War.
That's correct. And almost as many as in the Second World War. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the First World War was a major cause of why so many people died.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
the collapse of the empires is, though, too.
Yeah. And because the antibiotics were developed.
Asiar, if you were to fix the current situation in Ukraine, how will you do it? If you were God, you were omnipotent. Fix the whole damn shit. How will you do it?
Honestly, I don't see that now, after the 7 months of fighting, that there's obvious solution other than
you turn off the speaker, someone.
Yeah, someone's echo.
Someone turn on the speaker. So do turn off the speaker. If not, then there will be the echo.
I think that the Minsk Accords were viable until about March, but now I think they absolutely are not. And I do think that when you have a declaration like 2014 of an ethno-state that says we're going to be a unified Ukrainian Orthodox, Ukrainian-speaking ethno-state, then you really are telling the minorities that they have a right to defend themselves and secede and ally as they need. And the 22 to 25% Russian Orthodox population of Ukraine really does have the right to secede something, certainly Crimea. Donbass was not majority Russian Orthodox, but I think you've seen a population exchange. I think you've seen Ukrainian-leaning people leaving and going west, and you've probably seen Russian Orthodox moving to relatives or places further east where they'll be less discriminated against, and you probably just have a population exchange. So to freeze the conflict lines right where they are, and don't have to have the world recognize Russia's referendums, but you can certainly say they have an international law case to defend those people where they live, and that the alternative to let Kiev come in and let who loose? The Kraken Battalion, IDAR, Tornado, the SBU, like full Nazi units in charge of the lives of Russian Orthodox people. No, that won't be happening. I think the West had the idea, like Croatia, that they could just ethnic cleanse the Croatian Serbs out and make a Croatian ethno-state. But that was only 150,000 people displaced. To do that to the Russian Orthodox of Southeast Ukraine, you're talking about 5-7 million. So it's not going to happen. And I think the best deal you can possibly get is freeze the conflict lines where they are. And if any Ukrainian official continues to claim Crimea, remove them from the table by whatever means, because they're propagating the conflict. The second thing I would do is Poland and Israel, two allies of the United States and Ukraine, have made very strong representations formally that the celebration of Bandera and his Nazi colleagues should cease thoroughly in the Ukraine, and Ukraine should find another national hero. I think Ukraine has to comply with that. And if it doesn't, I don't think the state has a right to exist on the surface of the earth. So Nazism is over. If you put up statues to Nazis, you're reopening World War II with everything that entails. So I think that should be the hard line of the West. Take down the Bandera statue, stop celebrating Nazis, do not teach a distorted history in which these people were heroes.
Right.
And find different national heroes.
It's important to keep that fact. It's okay to remember your history. It's perfectly fine to remember your history, but just don't make your heroes people who want to commit genocide.
Exactly. I'll give you an example from my home. There was a statue in Halifax, Nova Scotia of a man named Cornwallis, not the one who fought in the American Revolution, but an earlier one. And that man had been involved in the slaughter of genocide of Scots at Culloden. And when he came to Nova Scotia, one of his first actions was to order a genocidal action against the Mi'kmaq people that had just signed a treaty. And then he also planned the deportation of the Acadian Catholics here. He really is involved in 3 genocidal actions within the course of 5 years. We had his statue removed, and it is going to go into a museum with a plaque explaining his complex history. But it is no longer up for display in the center of Halifax as the founder of the city. And that's very important. We had to get rid of it. To not get rid of it is to tell the Acadians, to tell the Mi'kmaq that we have a right to slaughter you and celebrate it. It's not allowable. It's not acceptable. Not every ethnic group in the world, not every religion in the world gets its own state. And one of the ways you can disqualify yourself to be a state is to lionize and count as the founder of your nation a genocidal maniac. If you do that, your country can be removed from the map. And
but
so
that's exactly what the Ukrainians and the Eastern European countries did. They remove all the Russian statues. That's what Ukraine did as well. Yeah. They remove all the T-34s. So the problem, the question will then be like what the idea of removing statues. I can understand that, but the problem is the premise where they come from, the narrative that they bring in. That is the problem, because you can actually point to any group of people as genocidal or they are the evil people, which is exactly what they're pointing at Russia now. So it's going to be very difficult. I understand that you have all these awesome ideas that how you can actually make Ukraine not so terrible now.
But one line I would draw here, though, Wyatt, is that and here's a toxic thing that I've seen in Western culture. I've seen people like Jordan Peterson say, who's kind of influential, that he can't see why Nazism is so reviled and that communism isn't, even though communism has arguably maybe a higher death count. I think that's a really serious mistake. The mistake is this: a crazy religious jihadi or a communist lets you convert to their ideology. They let you become a communist. They let you convert to Islam. But a genocidal racist kills you based on who your parents are, and there is no way out of that. So we decided.
That's very interesting what you just said, Mr.
Had to end, right? So
that's very interesting what you just said. I agree with what you just said. Nazism has a very ethnic dilemma to it, while communism and jihadism have a globalist ideas to it.
Yeah.
You can become a jihadist. You can become a communist, but you can never become a different ethnicity. That's very
You
interesting.
can't become an Aryan Nazi.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no
Yeah,
way. So
that's
if
true.
you're advocating that, you're putting yourself at war with everyone else, and that has global consequences. So when the United States under, FDR and Truman and the Western world destroyed and invaded the sovereign states of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan and dismembered Nazi Germany into what is now, I think, 7 different countries at least, and only 2 of them ever got back together. It was absolutely a casus belli for war that genocide happened. So I think in the post-war era, countries cannot have rights. Populations have rights. Individuals have rights. Maybe ecosystems have rights. But by no means can countries be said to have rights that supersede that of their populations. And so you can't say Crimea is ours if you have if you presented an existential risk to Russian Orthodox people. You just lose it. And
What if Putin says something like along the line of Crimea is ours, it belongs to Russian Orthodox? Because that's what he's saying.
It's factually, historically true, though, that never
I
in history.
agree, but nevertheless, he just broke your right dilemma. Then he broke it because he said because he said that Crimea is ours.
Yeah, but then he held his referendums.
He has several grounds for it, right?
The argument is they voted for it, right?
Yeah, but forget the
it's
vote.
if that's a real vote, you have to be a
There's several. There's a case there, right? The case is that Crimea was never that it had autonomy at all times when it was in the Ukraine since '54. It had a formal autonomy. That autonomy was broken in 2014 after the Maidan coup. Their police force was dissolved. Pensions were frozen. People were told they couldn't speak Russian. The autonomy was gone. And there was a treaty called... Well, let me finish this point because it's critical and most people don't even know this. The 2 treaties regarding Crimea between Ukraine and Russia, the Black Sea Fleet Partition and the Kharkiv Pact, both allowed Russia to put 25,000 troops in Crimea to secure Sevastopol against any military or other disruption threat. It's pretty clear to me, as a person who has contributed language to treaties, that if you say that you can literally occupy land and protect it as basically a proxy sovereign, then it's very clear what the consequences are if that threat to that land has come from Kiev. You're going to lose it. And it's explicit in the treaty that you're going to lose it.
Yeah, what were they thinking?
Broke the agreement for the ports.
Yeah,
they signed it, and like a year, 2 years after that, they just it doesn't matter. Get out.
They could have had Crimea now if they were just
right. Well, strictly legally, you're correct. The original Black Sea Fleet Partition Treaty said that the treaty would last till 2017, but it was to the Russians' sole discretion to extend it to 2022. What happened was the pro-Western government of Timoshenko, and I forget who the man was, Poroshenko. They no, it wasn't Poroshenko, it was before him. Anyway, regardless, let's get his name.
Yanukovych is the pro-Russian one.
Yanukovych is pro-Russian.
Timoshenko's co-ruler, the 2 pro-Western people, he's the guy whose face got all wounded.
Yeah, it's a Yulia Tymoshenko. And,
let me stay on track here. The actual issue was they attempted to force Russia out in 2017, and they made this announcement some years earlier. But there was a breach of the treaty. And so Russia renegotiated the treaty under successive government, Yanukovych's government, more friendly to them, into the Kharkiv Pact. And the Kharkiv Pact gave you cheaper gas in exchange for the lease being extended to 2047. So Ukraine did formally break the treaty by telling Russia to vacate 5 years earlier than they had a right to. But then what happened was the coup regime rewrote the constitution of Ukraine to break the treaty and forbid anyone having a foreign port. Well, if Cuba did that tomorrow and tried to tell the United States to get out of Guantanamo Bay, I don't think the United States would leave
there won't be Cuba anymore.
That it wouldn't be a Cuba anymore. So
There wouldn't be a Cuba as it exists today. How about that?
These are really profound breaches of international law. And if you have a country that cannot and will not keep the important security agreements that came into play after 91 to prevent these wars, like Russia got Sevastopol and Kaliningrad so that it would feel secure. If you take either one of those away, they don't feel secure, and you're back in the same nuclear scary scenario we could have been in the 90s. So this is serious stuff that people have to know about. Ukraine is by no means an unprovoked aggressor here. And if we could get to a ceasefire where at least nobody is killing anyone's uncle or grandfather or mother anymore, we would have time to sort out the legalities of it and the sanity of it.
The West doesn't want that. The West
doesn't want that. I agree.
They can't afford it. It's not that they want it; they can't afford it for what they have planned.
Well, guys, it's getting pretty late here in Israel. It's already 10 p.m. So I need to go, guys. Stay strong, my fellow World War III anxieties. Yeah, see you guys.
Daniel.
Bye.
Bye, Daniel. Yeah, that's so weak. Only 10 o'clock is late for him. It's 3 a.m. now for me.
Yeah,
People's at work,
he's no
right?
chat. Okay, Siar, I have another question. I told you how will you fix it. How do you think it's gonna end?
That's a good way.
Drew, you need to turn off. Or is it Marouane?
I think
Yeah, somebody's got to kill their mic. Somebody's got to kill their mic.
Is it me?
Yes, it's you.
I think it's only one that's gonna win. It's Vlad, I think, because he gained so much followers.
So much followers. Sorry, win what thing?
I think the only guy that won in this war is you, because you gained so much popularity.
Well, I've been studying the problem for a long time, and like I said, my grandparents are from Zaporozhye, and I've been involved in defense consulting, and I've written lines of treaties, and I just have a little more background in this maybe. But the answer to the question of what I think is likely here is I thought this was maybe a 30% chance at the beginning. I'm thinking it's more like 50% now, because I see Andrei Magra of Romania, former foreign minister, saying explicitly that Romania should take Bukovina, South Bessarabia, which is that little chunk on the Black Sea of what used to be part of Moldova and part of Romania historically. That's about 30% ethnic Romanians there. And they need to be protected from a conflict around Odessa. And Romania and Moldova have absorbed a large number of refugees that have to live somewhere. And maybe they don't want to live under Russia. And so one compromise here would be if Russia would, because Russia is, let's face it, going to probably steamroll Ukraine with this newly mobilized army, regardless of NATO help.
It will take several months.
It will take time. What would actually carnage would be if Poland were to move formally into Lvov, Galicia, Volhynia, protect it as some kind of autonomous region, and provide a shelter place there for people who wanted to be truly immune, but also demilitarize and say we're out of the fight now. Maybe that even means Poland leaves NATO, but it gains territory. Hungary has already repeatedly expressed concern about the fate of ethnic Hungarians, about 10% of the population of Transcarpathia, and they could also think in an autonomous way about protecting that place from the ethnic cleansing which is going on. And that's a sad situation. Back to there was actually a protest by women about their men being conscripted into frontline units they weren't legally supposed to be conscripted into. And they knew then that that was intending to slaughter them. This was the 128th Mountain Unit, and the ethnic Hungarians conscripted there, who were always a problem to the ultranationalists, were literally shoved into the front rank in Kherson and killed in large numbers. There's even a rumor that they were welded into their tanks so they couldn't get out.
I think that's not true. That's like
I don't know what's
Russian
true about that, but there was a day of mourning in Transcarpathia for the vast number of casualties here. So after this essentially ethnic cleansing of ethnic Hungarians from this region, then Hungary begins to express very pointed concerns, and you start to hear Orban making noises that sound much more like he wants to make a deal with Russia and much less like he wants to care about staying in NATO. So these three countries, which legitimately have historical claims in the Western Oblasts of what is now Ukraine, could just take that territory and opt out, with Russia and say, we're not going to fight, we're not going to help. Maybe they leave NATO, maybe they leave the EU, and there would still be room between them and the Russians for a remaining Ukraine centered on Khytomyr, on Kiev, on Kharkov, where maybe some of these horrible social issues, ultranationalist craziness could sort out over a few years. Now, of course, nobody in Kiev wants to accept that solution. But if Europe is freezing in the dark in November, December, and these ethnicities are being mistreated by the Ukrainians and the Russians are about to steamroller everything, then in my mind, that starts to look like the most likely outcome, a kind of Yugoslavia where it breaks into 6 or 7 pieces, 3 pieces of which go back into Poland, Hungary, Romania, one big chunk of which goes back into Russia. Maybe even there are parts that Belarus can administer. Who knows? But you can't operate a failed state that's out of weapons, out of money, out of credibility, and worshiping a Nazi from 1943. Like, as long as that's the scenario, they're done. As bad as Yugoslavia.
Let me react. I'll be quick. What I talked to someone in here in Czech Republic with, they smelled glass, and as my relatives remember the communism regime, people won't freeze. They will disable industry first, as they used to do during the communism, where there was really heavy industry, and sometimes there was electricity insufficiency. So they, example, my step, just a friend, family friend, he used to work, but sometimes they were on a night shift and they will just sting in the dark because they shut off the electricity, because they need the electricity and the gas to heat homes. So they were just drinking in work and chatting whole night. So
I don't doubt people will survive it. What I doubt is that industry could continue, that economies could continue, and that the public who's used to a westernized kind of lifestyle will accept that if they think the cause of a unified 1991 border Ukraine is doomed, and that's what they hear being promoted. They'll give up on it. They'll change government.
I think Ukraine is done. Like, we talk about Ukraine right now is already done. It was done on the 24th of February.
Yeah.
The thing is that people don't understand. After this kind of escalation and war, a country needs, like, I don't know, 50, 60 years to come back. Like, for example, if you view the American wars, Vietnam, Korea and stuff, you need 50 years so the country can rebuild. No investor wants to invest money in Ukraine right now, because if something happens, the Russians bomb it down or something, you know what I mean? I think Ukraine, and I don't think after the escalation of Russia with mobilization that people want to go back to Ukraine, even if they think, okay, Western Ukraine is more or less safe. I don't think so.
Well,
I don't think so either, unless Poland, Hungary, Romania take chunks of it under their wing.
Well, I don't. I
Poland.
think Ukraine is done as a country, but I don't think it's done as a battlefield. Not for a long time.
No,
Because
no.
the whole point of Ukraine, this war it's a conflict between the West and Russia and increasingly against the rest of the world. That's basically got tired of what the West has been doing to the rest of the world for generations.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to ask. Do you guys think
they're just fighting in Ukraine,
used?
kind of like a big
Do you think
war?
Ukraine is being used as like a sacrificial lamb, maybe?
Yeah. On both
They
sides.
test weapons.
Both sides are using
Russia
it.
and West. They test weapons right now. It's no joke. It sounds cynical. The West is like pouring in, like, if they wanted to escalate, they could send like 100 timers or something like that, right? But they're just testing the systems there. They're testing the rockets. They try to break the Russian anti-air defense, like with this new rockets. I don't know what's it called, HARM missiles, this radiation missiles.
They're relatively old too.
You see the new drones, like they appeared from Wild's last video and stuff. You see like experimental stuff. You see like these drones that are dropping like small bombs.
They're all just testing weapons.
But
at the end of the day, the people that suffer are the people from Ukraine. The politicians don't care. They're just using it to fight and test their weapons.
It's not conspiracy theory. There's interviews with Hillary Clinton where she literally says the model is Afghanistan. We lure the Russians into a quagmire for 20 years of horrible fighting. And Adam Schiff says we'll fight them there so we don't fight them here. I mean, this is exactly what they did to Afghanistan. Now, I'll ask you guys, if your country sadly turns down the Minsk Accord, which would have made it like Belgium or Canada, which was insane to turn that down. But if you then have a choice between being a broken up Yugoslavia where you have some options about where you might live versus an Afghanistan, is there one sane person who would prefer to be in the Afghanistan? No. Well, I think the Yugoslavia outcome is...
I don't think Yugoslavia and Ukraine is the same. It's completely different.
Nothing's the same, but they're both Slavic countries that were unified by outside forces. Right.
I'll shortly comment. I think that there was some instigation from the United States, as you said, as Hillary said, to make it to Afghanistan, and on the other hand, it was complete failure of the power projection of the European Union, because those leftist politicians didn't expect it will turn out this way, because they were living like in this era of peace, and they were focused on their Green Deal energy plans, and it completely surprised them that it escalated this quickly.
Bro, our Green Party, leftist Green Party, screams for freaking German Leopard tanks to roll into Moscow or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That's new for me.
It's a fundamental misunderstanding of European politics completely, or at least a misrepresentation of it.
Imagine Merkel would say, I want German Leopard tanks to fight against the Russians. Well, the image, like the imagination.
Sorry,
they're rolling again, baby. 200 million for the military-industrial complex.
What was that, CR?
What's the misunderstanding of European politics? You mean America's misunderstanding?
The misrepresentation. I misspoke. It's a complete misrepresentation to the people there because of the political game. There's truth of the matter, and then there's the political game that everyone's playing.
I'm going to offer an opinion that I don't think has been voiced anywhere else openly, but I've got about 22 years of green politics under my belt in Canada. And let me tell you, as a marginalized political movement that never even gets covered accurately, basically you're always trying to get stuff done with 5 or 8% of the wedge vote. And you're really fundamentally relying on changing the rhetoric of politics. And there's a theory about what the German Greens are doing, which I don't hear people say much about, but it may well be that they're deliberately compromising their peacenik, anti-NATO, anti-nuclear politics temporarily in order to exploit the war as a way to achieve the very extreme conservation energy shift that they've always wanted. In Poland and Germany right now, people are getting rid of all kinds of combustion, replacing them with heat pumps as fast as they can. The houses are being insulated like mad. Everybody is obviously motivated by prices to cut their waste of energy like crazy. Of course, all these appliances and devices have to come from somewhere. But as soon as these changes are absolutely permanent and irreversible, including the destruction of the internal combustion car industry, which will be gone by the end of this year, the Greens, I think, will, once that's achieved irrevocably, the Greens will turn on the NATO agenda, point out that Ukraine's guilty of war crimes and provocation of its own, suddenly discover that they're anti-NATO, and exploit the wave the other way. If they actually are a true wedge political movement, and if they really are capable, ruthlessly capable of achieving their long-term goal of defossilizing the continent and then demilitarizing it, you could argue they are succeeding at both right now.
Well, why do they want to move away from these fossil fuels? What would such a complete shift in the economic standing of almost every European nation, how would that help anybody other than killing a bunch of poor people who can't afford it?
I'm not
guys,
even
I have to go. It was
interested in
nice
debating
listening
that.
to Vlad, to Wyatt, and Chris. So, yes,
Peace.
Wyatt, will you do a next one or in a week or?
I try to do once a week. I try, but usually it will be like this one, very sudden. It will just appear.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't dare to schedule because I scared I forget I went to sleep. Then everybody will be like waiting for me. Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Bozo.
Take it easy.
But the thing is, I don't give the Greens so much credit for planning such 3D chess stuff, right? Because the Greens are like, I think they're like ideology driven. If you look closer what the Greens are in Germany, right? You may think, oh, okay, they're politicians. Habeck is like a book author or something, child's book writer. They don't have any background, like an economics or something like that. They don't have backgrounds.
But the elected politicians aren't the brains in the back room. And I'm telling you from what I've seen in other Green parties, that the people that run for office and get these couple of cabinet posts or whatever in a coalition government, they are just puppets. And the people behind
who's the puppet master? Who's the puppeteer? Like the United States, or who is it?
No, I mean, there are Green intellectuals who have clear public plans for how to defossilize the European economy, and the war is a way of achieving that.
Yeah, I see the Greens just like a puppet from the United States, honestly, because the United States wants weapons in Ukraine. Greens provide weapons in Ukraine. United States wants Germany to deindustrialize. They want the gas flow to stop.
And what do the Greens get for that? They get absolute compliance in Poland and Germany with a very radical efficiency imposed agenda, with a transformation of industry from, say, fossil to hydrogen, out of ICEs into EVs and hybrids. They get all those industrial infrastructure things they have wanted because of the war and the need to get away from cheap Russian gas. And there's no way that any amount of LNG import will ever replace the Russian gas. It's too expensive, it's too militarily vulnerable, and it's going to come online too slow. So the only solution is the Greens' long-standing transition plan. So they're going to get what they want. And I think they're not acting ideologically. If they were acting ideologically, they would be screaming to get out of NATO, stop the conflict, and return to their peace movement route. But they're not doing that, and I think the reason they're not doing that is opportunistic.
But one part of the plan is to stay in power, right? This is what Merkel always does. Keep the economy safe. Germans always said, like, Merkel is a symbol of a stable economy, right? They always want this economy to be stable. This is what Merkel always provided. The Greens, they're just cutting this down, and I don't think they will remain in power any longer because
Doesn't matter. Greens can get what they want without being in power. They formed a coalition with Schroeder, achieved part of the industrial transformation, very friendly policies towards solar and so on, and transformation that made efficiency more attractive. And then they were out of power the entire Merkel period, but none of their changes were reversed. So the Greens can come into coalition power for only a few years at a time, change the direction of the infrastructure in society, and then
kill millions of Germans
for 10 years. And they get what they want.
That's the scary truth
and
of
kill
it.
And
kill millions of people. Yeah.
Because
I'm not interested in that argument. I think you're full of shit making it.
Man, don't be rude. Don't be rude, man.
There is a saying.
Killing millions.
It applies even here in the Czech Republic, Poland, the neighboring states. The Green Party is like a watermelon. It's green on the outside, but inside it's red. It's ideologically red, driven by socialism and communism. And looking at our green politicians, it is mostly true, because they are green, but they don't care about nuclear. Why? Nuclear is the best transition. Yeah, it's expensive, but it is stable.
Yeah, but wait, expense is the key issue, right? Because if you spend $10 billion to make a nuclear plant to produce only as much energy as a $5 billion offshore wind plant would have, accounting for the grid storage and offset and grid intelligence you need, then you killed as many people or wasted as much life as the whole extra $5 billion that you didn't save and spend on things like public health, education, and other infrastructure. So expensive is the only issue. Nuclear is not even remotely effective. I mean, even Boris Johnson knows this. Nuclear is twice the price of offshore wind, and significantly, I think, much higher than gas. So for the last 10 years, nuclear has been off the table in terms of its build time and in terms of its expense. And when you look at the investment required, you get way more power for half the money, and then you have half the money left over for something else that will save millions of lives, in your public health system or your education or whatever, or international aid. You spend it any way you want. So it's completely irrelevant how many people are killed in nuclear accidents or whatever. It's a bogus statistic. What counts is how much money did you spend overall on your power, providing your power needs. And if you spent twice as much as you needed to the tune of $5 or $10 billion too much, then you turn down opportunities to save lives all over the table. So nuclear is a solution to nothing whatsoever. And the IEA is a corrupted, dead industry for a reason. There's a reason why it doesn't serve a purpose anymore.
I don't think that's a good argument, because if the argument is the capital cost for actually building the plants, right now, Germany has plenty of plants already built. They're actually actively turning them off. So if the consideration is only on the cost of then this argument doesn't fly.
Okay, good point. Good point, because an active functioning plant that's in maintenance order is a different situation entirely than a proposed new build. I agree. And that's why you see the German Greens are willing to do things like keep the existing plants open, but they're not willing to build new ones. And that's the reason why. And if you, last point on this nuclear thing, when Russia goes into Ukraine, the nuclear plants in Ukraine have been out of maintenance for a long decades. They are Chernobyl era plants. And so there's a material.
Oh, he's out in the.
He walked some connection. Yeah. But anyway, on his second point that nuclear is supposed to replace wind, I don't think that's a good comparison either, because wind is supposed to it's not stable. So nuclear is supposed to be a replacement for something like coal, which is
theoretically.
Yeah, it's only useful for like when there's the base grid.
You have
scenario.
Enough.
Whereas wind, solar, all these are for peak. Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm actually running low on battery on this phone, so I'm probably going to have to go in and charge it. But just to answer that point, if you look at a properly balanced grid structured the way, say, Quebec does in Canada, there's 170 terawatt hours of backup just in the existing hydro dams. That's enough to charge a full-size F-350 class electric truck a billion times. So storage is hydro, period, full stop, end of story. And if you can connect with a big enough transmission wire to hydro, then you have a giant battery for your wind and your solar power at about 70% efficiency. So nuclear is not competitive in any way, in any scenario, unless you have no way of connecting your grid to large hydro or pump storage. It just is not relevant to the future in any way, including small modular nuclear, which is more expensive per watt than big. So
not every country has hydro.
Yeah, I have to disagree. Not every country can have renewables.
Not every country is the size of Canada. If you, the thing about wind energy in Germany is the Germans themselves block, because of not because of corruption, but because of bureaucracy reasons, they block themselves off the renewable energies, because you have strict rules where you can build the wind stuff. How is it called?
Turbines.
Yes, the wind turbines, right?
Yeah.
When they are rotating, they make like dark light, because when here's the sun, just one of the things. The rotor is rotating, and you're sitting in your house, and it's like light, dark, light, dark. This kind of stuff.
Well, that doesn't happen. That's
they
not
have
reality.
rules for this. They have so much rules against wind energy. We can build wind energy, because if you ask, where can I put my wind turbine? There is no ground. There is no ground
wind
for
is a
it,
technology
no
that
place.
works at large scale offshore. It does not work nearly as well on homes. That's where you want to use solar.
The issue is there's a lot of landlocked countries. That's the problem.
Also, offshore is very, I don't want to say dangerous, but offshore is very risk dependent, and it's also expensive. It's expensive as hell, because you need to provide
compared to nuclear.
I don't know, but we always hear the talk in Germany. We have some offshore in the northern Germany, right? But that's kind of it. It's not even enough for anything, really. You need like thousands of this.
You do.
And the maintenance is also, maintenance is, I think, technologically.
But this is exactly the level of investment that the Greens have called for the last 10 years. And there wouldn't be an energy crisis if that investment would happen, right? So now it's happening.
You're speaking only on
Anyway,
Germany.
we can argue the wisdom of the transition, but my political point is the Greens believe in it. They're making it happen as a consequence of. No, I think all the Greens in.
No.
Dang.
We lost him
again.
Yeah.
He did say his phone was low on battery.
Yeah, I think.
But I agree and I disagree, because he makes good points. They make sense, right? If you have a scale to produce it, right? If you have the economy of scale to produce it. But this is where we bring in countries
but it's not realistic.
It's not always realistic.
Not realistic.
It's realistic if you extend the time frame. So right now the problem is the Western Europe is trying to do this knee-jerk reaction change to green energy. So people don't have time to react. The people don't have time to get the skills to run these plants, to shut down the old fossil fuel plants and whatnot, and then build out the new ones. It's too sudden. People's lives will be destroyed. Jobs will be lost. Economies will go into recession because of this. Whereas if you take it a more gradual scale and you build up all your renewables while still running your coal and your nuclear and whatnot, and then over time you slowly switch over as the grid is stabilized, as more and more renewable comes on. I mean, look at what China is doing. They built out the world's largest nuclear everything. They They have the most solar, the most hydro, the most wind. Among I think the top 5 countries combined, the one country in China has more than the rest of them.
Yep.
But they don't just switch over. They still have all their plants running, their coal-fired power plants running. And they'll switch over gradually.
Your time scale comment was very good, because this is where we can bring back to the conversation to how is the EU reacting to the conflict in Ukraine, and how their relationship with Russia is going. They, as we know, just freaked the hell out and just started doing everything they could to get away from Russian power. The problem is, of course, Europe's dependent on it. Europe exists because of it in its current state. And
it's not a clean transition. It's not a clean transition.
And the time scales work if you have a time scale, but Europe doesn't have one. Europe has today's September 22nd. Europe has a month and a half. Europe is facing such a big problem.
Time scale. Mm-hmm. The problem isn't that Europe doesn't have a time scale. It does. The problem is Europe's reaction.
Yes.
You see,
yes.
If they didn't react so drastically to the invasion, they wouldn't be in this pickle right now. They could have just said, told Zelensky, hey, just tell Russia you're not going to join NATO. It's not going to happen in the next 10 years anyway. Just tell them. It doesn't need to be true. Politicians lie all the time. Just tell them. And then in the background, work to, get more LNG or whatever, build terminals and whatnot. But they had an emotional reaction, which is not what you want politicians to have. They have an emotional reaction and just said, oh, no, stop it now. And they just didn't care for the welfare of their citizens. So they didn't give themselves time. They had the time. They just kind of said, we're not going to do it.
Do you think Putin really played his cards right now on purpose because of that? He had been watching how the energy industry had been developing in Europe, and he knew that if he acted now that he would have a major advantage?
I don't think Putin's actions now were pre-planned. He's also reacting. No
one is God. No one knows everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when they first invaded, they expected what happened in Georgia to be what to happen in Ukraine. The exact same thing happened, right? They amassed troops. They recognized 2 breakaway provinces, and then they made a beeline for the capital. The only difference is in Georgia, that president ran away, and then they withdrew, and then Georgia's fine now. In Ukraine, they did the exact same thing. They amassed, they recognized 2 breakaway provinces, and then they made a beeline for the capital. But then Zelensky didn't run, so suddenly their plans were up in the air. So this energy thing, I mean, if you listen to all their financial, like ministers' speeches and whatnot, they are all surprised that they are doing so well. They are all surprised that their economy is actually keeping up.
You mean now, as of now?
Yeah, now. Mm-hmm. Like they are surprised that they themselves are surprised that their economy is doing so well, and Europe is crumbling. So I think his reaction right now is in reaction to Europe's weakness economically.
Yeah.
Can I add something to that? Actually, I'm not sure. How the European countries are like kind of reliant to Russia for oil. There's an election in Italy that there's an election where a far left parties are going against each other, and there's a possibility that this party called the Brothers of Italy might win and try and negotiate with Russia to give them oil, because right now they're facing an energy crisis right now. So I think Italy might be one of the first countries to actually negotiate with Russia so they can still buy Russian oil. That's what I heard.
They can't. They already agreed to the sanctions of European Union. So the next step is in November. There will be a renegotiation of the sanctions. So every state will have to say that the sanctions will continue, but that the Russian, it is rumored that the Russians are depending on Hungary or Italy they will block some of them.
Speaking of elections, in the U.S., we have a congressional election. The big congressional elections are going to be on November 8th this year. So we're going to have, and it's predicted, America, we've got the conservatives and we've got the liberals. And currently the liberals are in power. In America, on November 8th, everyone knows there's going to be this big red wave of conservatism sweeping into the Congress. So now what we need to think about is how will that affect future sanctions, future implementation of new sanctions, at least new sanctions.
It will not, as it's the it's not the rumor. It is the USA foreign policy stays the same. It doesn't matter if there are Democrats or the Republicans in the House or in the presidency. The foreign policy usually stays the same. The only outlier was Donald Trump, and
that's what I'm saying.
He was very consistent, more or less.
US isn't run by the politicians. It's run by the companies that bought out both sides. So, they only use the Republicans to keep the guns there because they're just cheaper to buy out for guns, and they use the Democrats to keep the healthcare in tatters because it's cheaper to buy out the Democrats. If they just go for the party that's cheaper to get the policy that they want. But I'm hoping Trump will win because
everything's pointing to it. Everything's pointing to it.
I'm not.
Well, I gotta qualify that. I think Trump is a bigot. He was narcissistic. He has a very thin skin. He is
he's not perfect. He's not
thick skin at the same time.
As he can be, he is a liar and all of that. But he has one redeeming quality. He is incompetent. So if you have a establishment in power that's actively trying to hurt you, incompetence is good. If you look at his term, he tried so hard to start a war in Iran. So very hard. He couldn't. He failed.
Drew, I just want to make one point here that we can discuss about Trump, but the fact that he has survived in this very hard free competition world in the United States just is a proof that he cannot be incompetent. If there's anyone that's incompetent, which I don't want to point telling anyone that they are incompetent, that would be Biden. But
I fully agree with you.
That's not a debate.
That's not a debate. Yeah, but you see, Biden isn't the guy running the country. It's his political party. He's just the puppet. Yeah. So the puppet masters behind him are competent. They know what they're doing. Whereas Trump doesn't have puppet masters. He's this maverick guy that just came along and they don't know what to do with him. And the reason he's still there and is so popular because he is the one option, like everyone else said, that doesn't tie into any of the established political parties. He's the one option that has no loyalty to either side.
Yeah,
and an actor.
Then we are agreed.
Yeah,
and y'all can
so he was a Democrat before. Now he's a Republican. Whatever he gets to win, he will use it. And he's as corrupt as them.
Because he saw the truth. That's why he switched side.
He tells people what they want to hear. You see, he is as corrupt as all of them. The problem is he's so incompetent that Biden is competent, so he's corrupt. So he can steal billions of dollars of weapon sales, whereas Trump's corruption is in the millions, where he got people to stay in his hotel for a while. You see, he's corrupt and he's as bad as them, but because he doesn't know how to do the big ticket corruption, he only does the small ticket millions kind of corruption. So you lose less by having an incompetent person.
All humans are corrupt. Let's stop pretending.
I'm not. Come on.
I would say Trump is less corrupt.
Huh?
I agree. I mean, we need to understand.
Given the opportunity, he will swindle you of billions as well. He just doesn't know how to.
We must get out of this lie that some people are angels on the planet, like the Democrats. we are all humans are corrupt to a certain degree. Of course, Trump is somehow corrupt, but I would say he's less corrupt and less evil than those Democrats, Hillary Clinton and Biden and that side, because they are gross corrupt.
I disagree on the equally corrupt, but I agree on the less evil. I agree on less evil.
Yeah, y'all can agree on that. Trump actually kind of warned Germany because they were still buying gas from Russia. He was just telling them if you guys claim that Russia's your enemy, then why are you still buying from them? And that's one of the leading factors that a lot of the countries don't really care, and they just follow whatever the master tells them to. I'm just saying, and
yeah, but Germany buying gas from Russia was a good thing. You see, if the US hadn't stepped in, for decades since World War II, Russia and Europe has been establishing and improving their relations up until the US got their foot in the door. And the US tried every way. They said Nord Stream 2 was a red line, right? And they didn't want Europe to continue growing with Russia because, a combined Europe and Russia is a threat to the US. Just like China is. A combined China and Taiwan is a threat to the US. So it goes around trying to break apart all these alliances and whatnot to keep itself number one. Yeah.
Exactly.
You see, we all agree.
In the end.
In the end.
And India as well. So it goes around putting down other countries to other powers. So,
but the reasoning is because of their values, and they were back to the lie again. They will try to pretend that some people on this planet are angels, and the angels are them. You see how their argument for split and conquer and divide and conquer in Asia, they say it's because of their values, their value morals. No, it's just to divide and conquer, as they always have done. That's exactly how they always have controlled the earth, the planet, divide and conquer, and these are the masters of that game. And it's time now to wake up and see it. This is just
right now the game is out, because if you look at the map now, the entire world, other than the West, is basically gagging up and giving each other support to resist this pressure from the US. So the game is up, and the war in Ukraine, as bad as it is, it's kind of the sideshow. The main battle is what Russia is doing in the the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, BRICS, getting everybody, the rest of the world together to try to cooperate and resist. And the West right now is fighting back on that same, using the weapons they have. They're starting color revolutions now in Iran. They're starting revolutions as much as they can. But I think the global bloc strategy is basically to kind of all move in the same direction at the same time, so the US wouldn't be able to take them out, all at the same time, especially China, Russia, and India. So they're going after all the smaller guys like Iran and whatnot.
Yeah, most of the countries, especially India is going after their own interest. They saw that the oil prices and gas prices are going up the roof, and they started importing more and more Russian gas just to stop their inflation at home. And the funny thing is that even European countries are criticizing India for it. But the thing is, India has over almost a billion, I think a billion people.
More than a billion.
More than a billion people in India. Why would you just stop buying Russian oil? You have people to take care of at home, and you just have to go for the best deal as possible.
I've also read, I don't know if this is true, maybe you guys have heard more about this, maybe you guys can comment on it. India is buying Russian gas, a lot of it, at, of course, the discounted rates that they're getting, and then they're turning around and selling it back to everyone else. Is that true? Or
I think China is doing that as well, right?
There.
And
they're using the Europeans' weakness and stupidity And we buy the same.
Even Saudi
Russian
Arabia
oil
is doing it.
from-
Yeah, they're buying oil from Russia and then using that oil for their own needs and then selling that more expensive oil onto Europe.
Yeah.
They buy,
I mean,
the
the
crude
oil, I guess,
oil
only
and
comes from a
refine
few
it.
places in the world. You know,
They
just
buy
slap a
the
different
oil and
label on it.
gas. They buy the oil and gas, and then they refine it to the end product, and they sell the end product. They ship it like to Europe and stuff, which is like a lot more expensive. There's like a made in China, made in India stamp there, but it's the gas is from Russian earth, right?
It's kind of like a win-win
or
for
just
like every country.
mix the oil
because,
and then it
Russia's
becomes
still profiting from
Chinese.
the discounted gas because gas prices are like so high, so they still earn a profit. And when they resell the oil, they can really sell it for like it's expensive, and people will still buy it. You know.
Yeah, but if Europe wants to continue its current standard of living, it has to buy the gas from somewhere, and that gas in the quantities that they need can only come from Russia, because the other gas is already taken up in long-term contracts with other countries.
Yeah. The pipelines were there too, and they just nope.
Yeah, well, they're building new pipelines to China now, and I think they're exploring one with India. The China one's already announced.
Did they finish one recently to Iran? I heard they finished one recently. To Iran.
I heard that they're using the Kurdistan Sea is actually like basically a small sea in near like Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Iran. So Iran is using that sea for like from Mumbai. I'm not sure what city India is, but they're using a shorter passage so India and Russia could trade more easily through Iran.
That makes sense. I've heard about that.
Have you
but
guys,
either way, sorry.
are you familiar with the work of Pepe Escobar, who's a journalist who writes usually for the Asia Times? He's been writing about Eurasian integration for easily 15 years, and his articles and interviews are just uncomparable in terms of what's going on. He really does his homework, and he goes to these meetings and he talks to people that other journalists don't talk to. And he thinks the whole Eurasian integration project has been well planned for 15, 20 years, long before Belt and Road, and that it's a very deliberate thing of Putin to alienate the Western-leaning oligarchs and throw a few out windows and just tell everyone else, look, you're dealing with South Asia now, you're dealing with Latin America and Africa now. Forget Europe. Europe's done. It's over. It's not our friend. Never will be our friend. And, putting Russia at the center of this massive Eurasian integration of infrastructure, currency, technology, this is a huge win for Putin. And it drags the conflict out, because why should the conflict be settled tomorrow if then things went back to the US dollar and the euro? If the conflict continues until the US dollar and the euro are crushed and non-factors in global affairs to 90% of the world's population, then Russia wins, China wins, India wins, Saudi wins, Iran wins, Latin America wins, Africa wins. Why not finally crush the colonizers out of existence?
Well, I think even if the war ended tomorrow, there's so much momentum on the Eurasian side that's not going to stop. They're still going to go ahead with the BRICS reserves currency. They're still going to go ahead with all the trade deals outside the US dollar. They're still going to not sell gas directly to Europe. They're going to sell them to India. India's going to
wholesale it. They're going to wholesale it to someone else.
Yeah, they're going to wholesale it to someone else, and someone else is going to refine it and send it to Europe.
Yep.
And it's never going back to pre-February, even if the war ends tomorrow. And I think the Russians want the war to end. That's why they're mobilizing. They just want to quickly knock them out, and so they can stop spending money on this war and focus on what really is the real war, the economic side.
Yeah.
And to be fair, no one wants the the countries in Asia does not want the dollar hegemony, basically the dollar dominance over them, because America could sanction them at any time, and that should just ruin their economy.
I think the big factor here was that Russia made the first step against the wall, against the Western hegemony. They went in, they made the war, and the thing is, the sheer fact that they survived the economic sanctions, it boosted up the morale of the other nations. It's like, oh, they can't even kill Russia. like this, they can't drown it down.
Yeah.
They can't do it to us, because Russia will provide us with our stuff, and we will provide Russia with our stuff, right?
Here's what I wanted to ask you guys.
Balance out.
Do you think the West, at least some people, some of the people in power, do you think they're buying their own propaganda? Do you think they're falling for their own propaganda?
Yes,
It's hard to tell.
You see,
surely.
The current leaders right now, they grew up in this propaganda.
Yeah.
It all started after World War II, right? Where US became number one. They all grew up in that generation. So yeah, they're buying their own propaganda.
And if it's to their own benefit, you
They
will tend
are,
to
and
buy
to a
in on it.
degree, look at here's the important marker that Queen Elizabeth II just died. She was the last global leader that actually performed any kind of wartime job in World War II, right? The last American president that did was, I think, George H.W. Bush. So it's been a long passing of the guard, but the post-World War II people are now all literally gone. And the things they were able to evoke or get as a sentimental belief or a signal of we were the good guys is kind of really dies with her, right? It's now not that generation anymore. And when I look historically at the influence of the United States, I think Harry Truman creates the modern world in many, many ways. He and George Marshall and the Marshall Plan, the rebuilding of Germany and Japan, and the creation of the United Nations and the leading of the Korean War as a United Nations project. But it starts with Eisenhower and putting the Dulles brothers in the CIA, and they just go around killing democratic leaders in Iran and Guatemala, messing with Cuba, with Vietnam. The United States has been spending the capital of World War II for 70 years, since 1953, and it's gone. Nobody wants U.S. leadership anymore at all. And the only people that are hanging on are the people afraid of crossing the U.S., and that is down now to NATO and no one else.
Singapore.
The United States especially wants dominance with the military, especially with the military industry. I know that there is once you join NATO, you have to kind of buy American weapons and
F-35.
all that.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff. Like they have basically a dominance over you, with military too.
But I don't think it's NATO, honestly, because if you look at the NATO countries, they all have their own idea. Just look at Turkey, case in point, right? They're trying to play both sides, and
which is
I
dangerous.
honestly think it's a more to put it in a slightly negative way. It's kind of a racist thing. It's all the Anglo-Saxon countries, Britain, Australia, US.
Yeah,
They are the ones that are spearheading this whole thing, for lack of a better way of organizing them. The UK, Boris Johnson was the one that scrapped the peace deal. The US is the one that supplies the most weapons. They are in cahoots to push this through. And sure, they have other races living within them, but the core leadership, political and business leadership in all three of these countries are the Anglo-Saxons.
And that's how perception of them works. Everyone sees that, and that's what. Well, look, everyone's like that. And one more question for you guys: what's y'all's opinion on specifically the theory that's going around that Europe essentially is not autonomous anymore because America has such a thumb on them at this point?
Yeah.
Well,
it was gaining autonomy
in the long term. In the long term.
I mean,
right now it's going under US again.
Europe is not a federation. It's a bunch of states with different opinions or interests. So, for example, Poland and Czech Republic, we are buying a lot of NATO standard American arms, and it's a simple exchange. We buy arms for you, so you can support us easier if we get attacked, and we buy your weapons, and in exchange you protect us with your nuclear weapons. And it is simple transactions. However, if you look at Britain and France and Germany, Germany is better friends with France, so Germany uses the protection of French nuclear weapons. So they don't like Americans that much, because every country that doesn't have nuclear weapons needs to have a friend with them. So then you can see the divide in Europe, because some countries like US more and some not, because they use different protection. It is simplified.
Especially Eastern NATO countries, actually. Yeah, like they're more like conservative than the other like the Western liberals, basically, you know. They do have some certain divide. I mean, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
They are socially conservative. Economically, they are very leftists.
Could I have one little short speech here? I mean, the theme here is the mobilization and the referendums. That's the topic of this discussion.
And we have not talked about it at all.
That's right.
Because that's why I actually joined here, because I don't know much about economics. I know you are. I can hear that you have a great deal of knowledge in economics.
Some of you guys are. I'm an idiot.
But what I think is interesting is Russia correct when they feel NATO as a threat to such a great degree that they do this mobilization? Is this threat from NATO real?
It is not real in the short term, but Russia is afraid of political change in Europe, and then it would be really a real danger. But at the time, NATO is not a danger because no one wants to attack Russia. But that can change, as you can see, as Nazi Germany changed in like 7 years.
It takes only a few years of this propagandistic speech to the people of these nations to completely rile them up for this kind of thing.
Yeah,
I don't think it's fear of NATO that's causing the mobilization. You see, they planned the referendums way in advance. Right now, they already have all the ballot boxes, everything out. So
I think they planned the mobilization way in advance too. I think they planned
the mobilization is to coincide with the referendums, because once you have the referendums, those pieces of land become Russia. What happens if Ukraine starts to push forward? They need to defend that becomes like Mother Russia already. The mobilization is to defend the new land that they take. They can't rely on the militias anymore.
But even though it's never mentioned in media, in the Western media, but NATO's final goal is probably this global government. Jens Stoltenberg, we lived with him for a whole generation as a politician. We know this guy. He's a socialist. And it's this constant struggle for global unity. I believe Russia see this threat, that the secret agenda, their final goal is this global government, and then Russia needs to go. They can't have Russia. They need to overrun Russia to reach their final goal: global state, global domination. That's my view.
I completely disagree. If you were a person that wants a global state, you would be trying to cooperate with everybody. You will be trying to make friends.
But that's exactly what they do. They try to reach out for the women and the children. Listen to them. Listen to Stoltenberg. They always try to make sure that no one on the planet will view them as a threat. They are like angels, and it's a lie.
Yeah, it's virtual signaling.
They pretend
they don't care.
They try to make everyone. They try to make everyone calm down and don't look at them as a threat. What my argument is, what Russia probably sees is that these people are maybe the worst people on the whole planet. These Western folks, and to the suppressed people on the planet, for example, from Africa, when those people that went down and enslaved them, put them in chains, my argument, what we see now when we see Stoltenberg and NATO, what we see is just the same thing. It's just in a modern time. The same thing. When they took those black Africans and put them in chains, they probably came with cakes. Come on, come together. We're gonna help you. Exactly the same. But now they do it, and I look how clever they are.
Yeah, I agree. But the ultimate goal is subjugation, not cooperation. So when you say they're trying to create this global state, they're not trying to create a global state. They're trying to be in their own states, but subjugating the rest of the world. Because if you want to create a global state, you have cooperation. You won't go and virtual signal and then have slaves at the side.
No, but create a global environment where NATO is the main force of violence, so to speak. The ultimate force would be NATO and no one else.
Yes, exactly. And that is not a global state. That is a NATO state that is suppressing everybody else.
That's the first step, creating a global state, taking power with violence.
Mm-hmm.
Then the administration comes along. After NATO have the power, then the admin comes along, and then they build up the administrative state.
So,
but NATO goes in first. NATO goes in first.
So
NATO goes in first.
So now that the stream has gone to 3 hours now, so but we only just started to do the real topic, which is about Ukraine. So I think we can go on for another half an hour. I think that should be enough time for us to discuss whatever you guys want to discuss about. And meanwhile, I want to go toilet, so you guys don't mess up the place.
Okay, all right.
Carry on.
Well, but just my final argument before I'm out of here. I'm leaving the discussion. Just my final argument now is probably, I believe Russia is totally correct on the spot, because they know Russians aren't stupid. They are one of the world's best chess players. These are smart people, and they understand that they need to go for NATO to reach their real goal, and that's global control. And they can't have crazy Russians or crazy Africans on the planet, and crazy Asians, because they'll come from chaos.
I don't think anyone's disagreeing with you. I think they're saying that they don't have to go as far as to have one global state to accomplish what you're essentially saying.
No, this is simple geopolitics, not that the NATO wants global domination.
Yeah.
But I understand the idea, what do you mean? But this is just how to put it, a race between Western world, China, the rest of the Asia, and Russia is trying to find its place. But they don't like NATO because of historical reasons, ideological reasons. So they chose to do this go to this conflict.
Well, my guess is that the actual reason why NATO has been so provocative towards Russia, very rude behavior from NATO towards Russia. Now there are 30 countries being so provocative and rude towards Russia. And the reason is probably to provoke this war without having any guilt. Now Stoltenberg can say, we just want to help and create peace. Look at the aggressors. But they have provoked them for years. Why? Because they need to get rid of them.
Yeah. And they're doing the same to China. They're doing the same to the Muslims. Any country that they want, or race or group of people that they want to invade, the propaganda comes to make the populace hate them. And then when they invade or they, do some kind of intervention, then, the populace just sits back and lets them do it.
Yep. Well, here's something I wanted to get your guys' opinion on. I wanted to ask you guys, we know the first wave of this mobilization in Russia has started. We've got the referendums coming here in a couple days, and maybe they're going to get finalized in a week or two. Here's the thing that a lot of people are concerned about. we clearly, I mean, obviously, Ukraine's not just going to say, "Oh, you voted, or Zaporozhye, you voted, Kherson, you voted that you don't want to be part. Okay, that's fine. We'll leave." They're not going to do that. Obviously, they're not going to do that. So the big risk now is Russia might further their mobilization solely because of the fact that Ukraine is still on their soil. So they might have this first wave of mobilization within a couple weeks. What if they just do another one?
Yeah, we're not totally
Couple of
sure
months, but yes.
what the
Yes,
Russians
yes.
might do, and you're totally right. Once the referendums start and they're actually a part of Russia, Russia could actually up the mobilization, just like you just said.
Just
Alan.
again, yeah.
And if Ukraine still is attacking once again, like they could use that as an excuse to mostly further up the mobilization and try and finish this war once and for all. That's my opinion, and I actually agree with you, Alan.
Yes, they also, it appears they're using the mobilization as a way to push Ukraine to negotiate, because if you scare them with huge numbers of mobilized and videos of tanks, and they will have
thousands of people swarming
thousands
through
of people, videos, and even military intelligence, so the Ukrainians can see. So it may push them back to the negotiating table,
and they're
do with that,
go ahead.
and the war quickly.
I think the Russians count on what Ukrainians always did. Ukraine don't take Russia seriously. Their propaganda is always Russians are orcs, that their equipment is shit, everything is shit. We shot down 8 out of 11 rockets. Propaganda like this.
And
I think the
once
thing
and
is
for all,
Russia is
they're
counting.
trying to just discredit Russia, and they're trying to say, like they might be bluffing and all that, but I don't see them as bluffing. They just mobilize, and
I think Russia is counting
and plus
on
Russia has like millions of stockpiles of old Soviet equipment. The Soviet Union used to mass produce weapons and a lot of stuff during World War II and during the Cold War, and they could actually use those weapons. They're like if they are able to like I guess put them into use and check if it's workable or not. They could obviously use those equipment and also keep on going with this war, and you get a force and go ahead and try and finish Ukraine once and for all. But once again, they keep on saying Russia doesn't have ammo or anything like that. But are they in a Russian military? They don't know what's in the Russian military itself.
Right.
Even if they say intelligence says that Russia is failing and all of that, but I view as like the intelligence, especially the American and British intelligence,
right?
The M16. Not M16.
MI6.
Yes. M6. Yeah. They tend to try and lie a lot. Like just to fuel up the propaganda. We're not actually sure what's going to happen next. I'm not sure what the war is up to come, but it's kind of I'm pretty certain that Russia might try and escalate this the current state of it, but that's just my opinion.
Here's one more question. Here's a question that's probably on everyone's mind.
Okay.
And I mean, not on everyone's mind, but that everyone probably wants to at least hear an answer to, and that is, will Russia? I know I have my own opinion on this, but will Russia use nukes? Personally, the answer is no. But it's such a prevalent thought in people's minds. I don't know why, but it is, and that's what you hear from a lot of people.
I can tell you why. Because the Western media is talking about it all the time.
Exactly.
They talk about nukes, and they talk about like Great Britain. That was there was this
the
discussion
torpedo,
like
the super torpedo.
Yeah, the super torpedo, like the Russians. If you talk about nukes, we are the power that have the most nukes on the planet. We can bomb the whole Earth 3 times. Nothing will left out of it.
Actually, not.
Russia's winning in the economically, like in my opinion, are winning in a geopolitical like system. And what if they were to use nukes, it would just destroy everything. Like honestly, I feel like Russia has the time in the world just to weigh out the conflict. And I'm seeing that including Germany, they're trying to preserve their own security first because they gave mostly everything to Ukraine, but like most of the old Soviet equipment they used to have is all sent to Ukraine, and Russia practically destroyed, like I'm guessing, most of their equipment. And they're trying. Ukraine is asking for more equipment, but they're trying to prioritize their own security and like not give Ukraine that much weapon as they did before. That from what I heard in Europe.
Yeah, I have a different point of view. I think this whole like what Vlad says, the nukes thing is basically a lot of Western propaganda. It's like the murderer that killed 2 people telling other people that, hey, look at the Russian and the Chinese guys, they might go and kill people. The guy that dropped 2 nukes is the one telling other people to be afraid of the other guys going to drop nukes. Mm-hmm. But I don't think Russia will use nukes, but I think there is a possibility for them to use nukes. If you listen to what they say, it's very clear. They always say, if the West escalates past a certain point, we will have to use nukes. And usually after that, they will say, if the West use nukes, we will respond in kind. So they're saying we won't use nukes first, but if the West decides to use nukes, and they have done it before, we will respond in kind. That's all they're saying.
I mean,
So
look
they
how
might
Russia
use it.
handled the war. Russia handled the war pretty. They didn't escalate like to this point, right? Like 6 months of hardcore war. They didn't do like the U.S. army would already destroyed Ukraine already. Like none, I think.
Three times around.
Exactly.
But the thing
and,
is,
Russia's play, like he's like literally using limited amount of troops, and Ukraine is using like 700, like over 700,000, in my opinion, estimated troops. They say it's 1 million, but I'm not sure about that. Russia is like using like with one hand, just trying to like fighting the conflict like literally for like 6 months straight. And I
just
see that
watch
as
the
very
game,
impressive.
the
Even
political
though
game.
people don't see it as impressive, it's very impressive done by the Russians, in my opinion.
Look, the political game Putin built up around. He's managing a war, and while the war is going on, he's doing business all over the world, right?
Yeah.
All over the Eastern world. And the thing is, one nuke can turn this all off. Cut all the ties, because it's a huge escalation on Russia's point, right? They will never use nukes. I don't think so, unless they have like a reason to do so. A reason
they need a casus
would
belli.
be if the Crimean Bridge is Ukraine's are always talking about.
No, guys, you don't understand. Ukraine is in Moscow. There's Ukrainian tanks driving into Moscow as we speak.
Punching air in Kharkiv, right?
Russians always say there is a red line, but never specified what the red line is. So it's the kind of ambiguity that was
They don't
with
need to.
Taiwan
NATO
and
knows
US.
exact
Will defend
the
them?
red line.
Won't. No one knows, until Biden ruined it, of course. But that is the same with the nukes. The speculation or the feeling it might or might we might use them or might not is the thing that helps. When you use it, it goes away, and it is gloves off, and of course that will be bad for business as well.
Look at the situation in Kaliningrad. They tried to escalate. They tried to bear a little bit more. No nukes, nothing. Like Russia is very serious about not escalating the war. But they see currently the Ukrainians don't give up. They throw waves after waves, claim more and more territory.
And
at the expense
I
of
heard from a
lives.
military summary.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of watch his content too. I heard that he also said that. I heard that he also said that there's some kind of panic in Ukraine because they saw Russia start partially mobilizing, and they expected Poland and some of the other countries to mobilize too, and that never happened. And I'm not sure what that means exactly, but he was saying that if Russia mobilize, but the other countries of NATO don't mobilize, that means they're not in the same pace, you know.
Mm-hmm. I've got to head out here in just a second, but I saw that was a question in the chat that popped up. I'm gonna give my quick answer. Maybe we can talk about it.
Right there, yeah. Why did Russia not just declare war at the beginning? I think that's what we covered at the beginning. Putin was covering a bunch of economic ties. He was trying to still do business during the wartime. And because of that, you can't declare war outright, because that'll make you some sort of boogeyman on the world stage to some extent. And that's just my answer for that question. Other than that, I've got to head out, guys.
A war.
All right, see you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah.
But
they don't declare war anymore.
no one declares war anymore. I think
Yeah.
I think the United States didn't declare war on Iraq, although it was like a full-scale war with a giant air campaign and giant tank battles and stuff, like from the movies, like from the
Vietnam
Command
was
and
the
Conquer
last-
game.
It's a special military operation.
Yeah, to be honest, they stay like a lot of countries see like declaring war as like hurting your economy, because once other countries see that you're at war, they would probably try and stop trading with you and all that, especially when you're like at war with someone else. So
Yeah,
I think Russia played
because
their
you
card
become a
right.
belligerent if you help, so you will be a valid target for the other side as well.
It could
If you
also be a
declare war, you
sign.
mobilize, and if you
It could
mobilize,
also
you
be
burn
a.
those little tubes.
It could also be a sign that Russia really believes in their case by buying time. If you don't go to war but do a military operation, it will be less dramatic, but people get more time to think, to absorb what's going on. And in my view, I think more and more people, now we can watch the Western media, now we can watch the show, the theater, now we can watch it, and the more we watch it, the more we can strip down the lies.
Yeah, I honestly think that support in the West for the war decreases as time goes on, because people do learn about the historical roots of the conflict. They see the case both that Russia actually has for rescuing these people in the southeast and for NATO's provocation. 27 million people have watched John Mearsheimer's 2015 talk on why is the Ukraine the West's fault. And people increasingly find stuff like Ritter or Douglas McGregor or what Kissinger has to say on it, or what George Kennan said. And frankly, the more you look into this, the more it does look like a pattern of deliberate aggression, expansion against the promise to Gorbachev, repeated treaty violations by the Ukraine side, and complete intransigence on what could have been negotiable points. Just the admission that the Minsk Accords were a ruse that Poroshenko never intended to meet and that the guarantors never intended to enforce is enough to disqualify the legitimacy of the NATO-Ukraine cause on the world stage. 90% of the world says, well, you had your chance for peace and you threw it away. So I'm a little less optimistic than you younger guys, though, as far as the nuke and WMD scenario. I lived through the Cold War. I was 16 in 1980. I watched Reagan come to power. I saw the Star Wars thing. I saw the Chernobyl crisis. I saw how Gorbachev tried to reform the USSR. And I was aware generally of history before that. Things have never been as irrational, and there have never been worse leaders in the Western world, in my opinion, than there are right now, ever. And that's very dangerous. I really might kind of look for hope to people like Jaishankar, the foreign minister of India. He's a very sane, sensible man. I think the Pope is on a mission to Kazakhstan right now, and he may be meeting with Cyril of the Orthodox Church. I think there are adults in the room in Hungary and in Romania, and even to some degree, no, I'm not seeing them in the United States, but, you know, honestly, I do see at least a few single-digit scenarios of nuclear use. Like if there's literal Nazi units in Crimea invading Sevastopol, genociding Russian ethnicity people, and simultaneously a Ukrainian attack into Russian territory and Kaliningrad attacked, and an American fleet carrier shows up in the Black Sea, I think that carrier and its fleet goes to the bottom in a nuclear explosion. So that's a 1% chance. I don't think Turkey's ever going to let them in, but there are scenarios that are so threatening to Russia that their tactical nuclear doctrine does apply. That said, I think it's more likely we'd see radiological or biological events rendering areas of Ukraine a no man's land than we would see attack nuke used.
I just hope we don't have another world conflict, because like modern technology, especially like EMPs and all of that, are very, very, very dangerous. And if we have another World War III, that just might mark the end of humanity. And I'm just hoping world leaders will just understand that if you like go too far, it might spark another worldwide conflict, and you might just like end whole countries and all that and make them uninhabitable.
No,
And you're very right about that.
I'm hopeful that the West will throttle Ukraine if Ukraine starts winning, which is, in my opinion, unlikely. The West will either stop help, material or financial, or both, or even intercede if Ukraine would do such a thing that would.
But you're not seeing those stoppers put in place. You're not seeing a single NATO country say out loud that there is a case, for instance, for Russia to make regarding Crimea, or a lawful referendum path that could lead to its legal integration and recognition in Russia, even at the same time as they're prying Kosovo away from Serbia with almost no process. It's like a very, very deliberate way of saying, we set the rules, and when you're going away from a country we don't like to join us, you can do whatever you want. We'll recognize your secession. But if you're leaving a country that's a puppet of ours to go join our enemy, we will stop you, and there is no process. That is not a law-based system. Kosovo, Crimea, Taiwan are not being dealt with in any way in the same framework. And the world sees that. And so I'm not seeing the standing down or the moderate positions you would need to see to stop Ukraine or stop America from throwing troops into, say, Crimea. It's just tactical and logistical factors preventing it, not diplomatic ones. Zelensky's running around saying, we're taking Crimea, and no one contradicts him. No one limits him. No NATO country has said, we will consider recognizing Crimea under these conditions. And without those...
But they won't give him any more tanks, any more HIMARS, nothing.
Well,
for
I think
example,
that's happening right now because we're not hearing any of that because they're losing. I agree with Adam that if they start winning, I think they'll start holding Ukraine back, because what the US wants, not what NATO or Europe wants. What the US wants is a forever war, so they can keep sending weapons there and paying the military-industrial complex. That's what they want. That's what they had in Afghanistan, a forever war. That's what they had in Iraq. After Afghanistan shuts down, where's the next war? They need to keep selling weapons. Ukraine.
Even better than Afghanistan.
And also,
yeah, exactly.
I think
they don't have their troops don't have to die. The Ukrainians are dying.
And also, I think this winter will be like set the marks for like a lot of major events. And I think I think winter might be like somewhere around the end of the Ukraine war, because I don't see this like lasting another year, in my opinion.
That's a good question somebody just asked. I do give a lot of credence to the theory that the United States wanted to destroy or deeply weaken Europe and permanently divide it from Russia. And my evidence for that is that when China and Russia met in January at the Olympics to discuss energy deals outside the dollar, they were going to settle those deals in euros.
Yeah,
and I didn't know that.
Actually,
I think we all should be glad. When that's said, I think everybody should be glad that they called it a military operation. But I think one of the reasons was that they believe in their case. They believe with time, people will grasp the truth. The truth will come. For every second that goes, the truth will have a tendency to win. If they had rushed it, they had a lesser chance of winning the narrative, the political battle if they rush through. By calling it a military operation, don't rush it. You can see it on the battlefield as well. They don't rush it. They seem very patient. And I personally believe one of the reasons is because the Russians really believe in their case. When they say it's a empire of lies, I think they really mean that the West and NATO has become an empire of lies, and they believe they will win this politically.
Yeah, and look at fundamentally, this anti-colonial argument carries tremendous weight. I mean, when you look at colonialism and the history of abuse and slavery, particularly by countries like Belgium and Britain, I mean, the last significant NATO intervention destroyed the richest country in Africa, which was Libya. And there are actual sub-Saharan slaves being sold in its capital right now, as two NATO countries, France and Turkey, bicker over which faction should be supported to be the government.
Yeah, and
So
no one cares.
It is absolutely not arguable that NATO is not a colonial enterprise that has aggressively destroyed leading country in Africa. They did it to Libya deliberately, and there's a good economic argument that Gaddafi was creating a threatening counter structure, an Islamic banking system, a gold-based currency, and so on. And, you know, when you see stuff like that, you know, that is a demonstration that those, you know, less than white, less than West European lives are worth absolutely nothing to the decision-making class in these countries. And what concerns me more than other things is that when we put nuclear non-proliferation in place in the 70s and 80s, we did not do it because of a moral disgust with nuclear weapons. We did it because biological weapons were becoming available and they were cheaper and harder to trace. And countries like South Africa and Israel were actively carrying out intended genocidal biological warfare programs. And by agreeing to get rid of all nuclear weapons, we could also put biological weapons under a framework of restriction. But if we really are going to let Zelensky run around and say he's going to get nukes, and let Donald Trump just throw away the entire nuclear non-proliferation regime, and before him Bush, then exactly why would a medium power like Brazil or Pakistan or Indonesia not pursue biological weapons in earnest? And why would they not aim them at Northern European genotypes, who are the most dangerous people on Earth and have most of the nukes? So fundamentally, yes, the extinction of the human race is at issue here, and one of the main vectors by which it may happen is by continuing to escalate and allow loose talk about nuclear. Other countries and other cultures in the world may pursue biological and succeed at isolating a genotype and wiping it out in a biological event. So that's what we're actually risking here, and that's why I think every Western government that has, you know, pussyfooted around the nuclear proliferation treaties, and they're obligating us at an ever-widening biological war risk.
I think it's very interesting. I think it's very interesting that the establishment of the Republican Party in America, when we talked about Trump and such, I think it's very interesting that it was Lincoln. The establishment of the Republican Party in USA was to relieve the slaves. It was founded upon going to war to set the Africans free from their chains. That was how the Republican Party, the conservatives, come together. And what I think is very interesting now, but now they have switched side. Now it's the left, the globalist, that's going to help out the third world, and the conservatives supposed to be the enemy. Probably, my view is probably it was the Democrats back then that put them in chains in the first place. They have just switched side, and now you can see how clever they are, how good actors they are, and how good of a liars they are.
Also, people don't realize what is going behind the scenes when we talk about World War III, like with nukes. No one is talking about the submarines. We have like a lot of German. We have like I think 6 submarines. They're on a mission right now, somewhere near Russian submarines. We hear, like what is happening under the water is like I think most dangerous. It's more dangerous than the stuff that's happening in Ukraine, because if something is happening there, yeah, because the United States project power by the Navy fleet, right? To counter that, Russia have also a submarine fleet. And to counter Russian submarine fleet, NATO has also submarines. So I think if we talk about nuclear weapons and nuclear war, I think if it starts because of a stupid accident somewhere in the seas.
But the thing is, nuclear submarines are usually meant as a last strike. So submarines, the nuclear warheads, are meant for cities to destroy the nation, which after the nuclear exchange. So your enemy has harder time building back up. The first strike goes for the silos, so the other side can launch. Then you have the tactical and strategic, that are on the cars, and the submarines are the last strike so to be used after the war is over, after the nuclear exchange is over. But yes, it is possible. But when the incident is between armies, they will just like, oh, sorry, well, we don't want to escalate. We're sorry, and they will back off. The more plausible scenario is somewhere in civilian military, not just you have to, for example, hit a city. For example, if on Ukraine there is some malfunctioning rocket that will kill like some important place, that is the point of escalation. Then just soldiers or submarines having a contact and one destroying the other. And I will just quickly to the chemical weapons. I'm a chemist by profession. Not yet. I just finished school, but the finished college. But the old chemical weapons, like nerve agents, they are really useless. You have to make a lot of quantities, and hitting people that are not concentrated is really hard. So that chemical weapons anybody won't use them. But on the other hand, biological weapons like viruses are too unstable to use. Yes, you can make viruses to target specific races, or more correct term in my language, race is basically means breed, but for humans. And the viruses are unstable, so you can't use them because they will mutate. Even if you stabilize them, the chances if you make a virus to target Northern Europeans, it will easily mutate to target Slavic people and Mediterranean people, and then you entire America is in danger because they are European descent. So that also is not usable. So it leaves the viruses like something not lethal, like coronavirus, but it is not lethal enough to warrant hard lockdowns. But on the other hand, it's not lethal like Ebola, which is quite simple to contain. So yeah, chemical weapons, yeah, the use is possible, but it's really impractical. So if you want to commit genocide, you will just, the simplest is just round the people up and shoot them. But in today's world, it's really hard because everyone is watching their satellites. So genocide is probably not possible in today's world. And if anyone will use nukes first, he will be legendary in the history and will be remembered like the next Hitler. So even no one will use. I'm hopeful Yet no one will use
no one actually used America. Like there's only been just 2 nukes actually in Japan, Hiroshima and Hiroshima. That's the only time anyone used a nuclear weapon, basically. And if there's another one,
after you established a global state, then you can do genocide. Then the satellite doesn't matter.
Because you have power and you can genocide whoever you want because you have propaganda.
You can set by law. You can just set by law. You know, everybody have to take this vaccine. You know,
and we'll go
cannot have
1984.
Take out the internet
and
it's a
this
genocide.
shade of color will need to take this pill, and then there's none of them left.
But modern genetics makes like old arguments like the Aryan race is irrelevant. We now know it is not like that. Yeah.
I think most of the world is you know, I mean, look at this panel. There's yellow guys, white guys, black guys. We're just missing some brown guys. You know, it's a global community. We all have the internet. We all talk with each other. It's the politicians that are pitting us against each other. If we just sit down as people like here, usually we come to find that everybody's just, you know, a regular guy trying to get by, have a job, you know, find food, you know, start a family. All this racist stuff is just pushed by the political class to divide us.
Yeah, that there's nothing to do with, but biologically though, like first of all, I'm going to agree completely, chemical is useless, and I never said chemical weapons were relevant at all. But you can't invent some kind of magical perspective from which WMDs won't be used because they'll wipe out the human race. That the perspective that would actually limit that conflict doesn't exist. All you would need is one player to believe that the biological agent wouldn't get out of their control, and then that would be enough to launch it. And yes, you would be risking the entire species at that point. But that's a decision that would be made by only one player. It's not a rational agreement of all scientists that this wouldn't work. That may well be the majority consensus opinion now, but all you need is a scientist in a military that doesn't believe it, doesn't agree, or doesn't care. And I'll give you a simple example, which is that Neanderthal DNA basically doesn't exist in native African populations. It exists in Asian and in North American and in European populations. But you know, the Neanderthal DNA comes after the exit from Africa. So there's a clear marker that a genetically designed virus could hook in on. Now, it may well not be something lethal. It might be a slow burn, like a long COVID, that if you get it 10 times, your IQ is down by 20 points and you get fuzzy and you're less effective at your job, and it's a long-term economic drag and not a lethal thing that would be allowed to spread. Maybe long COVID is even an example of that. But it's totally wrong to look at biological weapons as some kind of thing that can't happen because of the bad outcomes. There is even a sliver of human society, religious and other extremists, who think that humans all need to go on to the next world, or that the planet is better off as a life form without us. And there are agendas there that simply wouldn't care if the result was human extinction. So there is zero credibility to the argument that they won't be used because of this bad outcome that you think people will balk at. There are people
we must take a break here and realize humans, we are also, it's much good in humans as well. Even though we have wars, just spend some time thinking about it, how much good there are in all humans. We must not lose the perspective here. We are actually, it's so much good in humans, and I think we're going to make it if we just, this is a perfect example of a very good initiative by the commander, so-called commander, that we are now able to meet on the internet and discuss these topics without being stopped, not by NATO, we are actually able to talk and discuss, that's a sign that there are some good people, there are much good things in humans, and I think we can solve it eventually. But I think we should be glad for Russians more than they are demonized like orcs and stuff. I think Russians we need to pay more attention to what Russia is saying, is my view.
So I want
least
just to cut
likely
in.
people would be the
So
Russian.
we are the stream is now 3 hours and 3 hours and 38 minutes. So it's a bit too long now. So I want to give everyone a chance to have a closing statement. Then we have to close the stream. Then maybe next week we'll do another open mic. I haven't decided. Maybe it could be Telegram. That means the session will be like the invite stream will actually be in Telegram. So because this time around is on Discord, so maybe the next one will be on Telegram. So anyway, who want to start first? The final words. How about Vlad? Since Vlad is
yeah, let's go by the name.
Drew first. Vlad or Drew first?
Let's start with Vlad and then go around.
Yeah, we just go. Okay. Is Vlad hang? He looks like he's not moving. Oh, okay. We start from Adam go first.
Yeah, I'll just quickly address the biological weapons. The problem is when you have the tools to make the weapon, you also probably will have tools to fight the weapon as well. So that's a simple that. And for my final statement, probably I don't really know, but yes, there is hope that there is good in people, and good people will stand up and stop bad things from happening. True.
Yeah. I guess what I can say is I think this war overall is bad. Even though Russia is doing a good thing in fronting kind of the fight against the oppressor in the West, but they are using Ukraine, as like the tool to do it. So the people that's living there could have been any of us. They could have used any country, and we as regular people would have suffered, tremendously. So at the end of the day, both sides need to de-escalate. Both sides need to stop. Both sides need to back off and go back to the negotiation table and just settle this by talking. If they want to assassinate each other, go ahead. Kill off the politicians. But the regular people get to live, their lives, and I think that's the most important thing. Yeah.
So, Bjorn.
Thank you. Well, I will use my short time here I will say to the soldiers at the front line, because they are actually the ones that gives it all. And we know they are suffering there. Many suffering is going on. And I also want to say to the Ukrainian soldiers, you have a more natural belonging to Russia than you have to NATO, because you don't know what NATO is all about.
So Vlad, just now I think you dropped off. So it's a final statement before we end the stream, because it's like 3 hours 40 minutes already.
Yeah, I think Russia starts this war in February, and I think this war would end in February because they're amassing so much troops. And to that point, I think Putin made a statement to his partners, like international partners, that this war will end soon. And I think Ukraine is running out of everything: support, money, economy is dead, everything is dead. And I think in the next 3, 4, 5 months, they're amassing like a mess. I think they're preparing a massive air campaign, right? Like the US did in Iraq. I think they will just smash the shit out of Ukraine. I'm sorry to say that, and then it will be over. Everyone will talk. Oh, Russia isn't that weak, and the propaganda can't hide it. This is the thing. When the propaganda falls, the war is lost. I think this is the last point where NATO is winning the propaganda war. When the propaganda war is lost, they will drop Ukraine. On that note,
Chihu. I don't know how to pronounce actually. But...
Oh yeah, just call me Craig. But just to be super brief about this, just on method, right? We're supposed to be doing analysis here. And it's absolutely critical in analysis that when you don't think something is possible,
that you not assign it as 0% and forget about it. Even if you're given it a 0.1% probability, keep it on your list of unthinkably bad things that can happen. If in 1910 I told you guys that the most civilized countries on earth were all going to take all the technology they'd invented in the late 19th century and early 20th and use all of it to slaughter each other, including civilians on large scale, and that this would continue right into the use of the atom bomb like 40 years later until more atom bombs were built up to destroy all life on Earth, you would have thought it was a nutcase. Nobody in 1910 believed that was possible. And because nobody in 1910 believed that was possible, they couldn't prevent it. So let's believe that it is possible to have unthinkably bad outcomes, and let's give them probabilities in the single digits or lower, and let's actually work on how we disable the paths to get there. If we don't want biological war, then let's go back to the framework of nuclear controls, and let's silence the people who are talking about acquiring or giving those weapons, and let's get serious about actually phasing them out. And let's never engage, ever, in genocidal, racist, religious rhetoric, no matter how frustrated we might be with a particular group of people, because we know that that can't lead anywhere other than escalation of this kind. So those two rules, don't assign it a 0% probability because you can't understand how it might be possible, and always look for that path to de-escalation and leaving the other person a way out. And that starts with never engaging in a us or them to the end argument.
Well said.
That's a very good.
Yep.
And
Well said.
so Manny.
Okay. First off, I think that this is going to be Russia's chance to show most of their military might because they've been fighting with one hand. I'm obviously against the war, but in my opinion, I kind of felt like Russia couldn't really do anything in the diplomatic table, so they had to rely on the war. But it's kind of all right. But they really wanted to break the U.S. dollar hegemony, basically. They want multi-currency, like basically that state and all that. But I'm just hoping that this war ends sooner or later because I don't want any more people to die. Obviously, this war is obviously bad and all that, but I guess we're humans. Like, war is basically our thing. We've been doing this for years, it's kind of true. But let's just hope the war ends, and I'm hoping World War III doesn't happen. I think that's it for me.
So far, okay, so thank you so much. So World War III will happen or not? I actually forgot to check the poll. I did a poll, right? Where we all dive in World War III. The Twitter one was quite positive. The Twitter one, more than 50% say we will not die in World War III. And I forgot to check the one in the YouTube. So what was the vote count? 52% say World War III will not happen. So yeah, it will not happen. So fantastic. So yeah, that's pretty consistent. So far, my polling has been consistent across Telegram, Twitter, and YouTube. It's very interesting how it's always more or less the same. So anyway, thank you so much for everyone for participating in this open mic. This is in a way also coincidentally, the Discord channel, the DPA Discord channel got over 1,000 members. So in a way, this is also like a celebration. Yeah, but I don't know, celebrate for what. So anyway, it's just 1,000 members. Yeah, so just nice. I already plan to only do this for Discord members, so I have to invite inside Discord. So just nice. So the next one, I guess, should be on Telegram. The invite will be next week. So if you guys are interested, do and also the viewers that you are interested, do join the Telegram. The DPA Telegram channel is in the description below. And thank you everyone for participating. Every stream, right, I do, it seems to be breaking records. Now it's like 3 hours, 47 minutes. My last personal stream was 6 hours, and after that, I can go to 7 hours. It's getting longer. Soon we're going to do a 24-hour stream soon.
Don't do it. It's not worth it.
You were like, everybody, I'm going to sleep now. You guys continue.
Thank you, everyone. It was nice.
Thank you so much,
discussion.
everyone.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for presenting us. Bye.
See you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's it. And hopefully you guys enjoy the open mic. As usual, in case you do not know, open mic is an open session that anyone from the DPA community can come and talk. So no, that's why I don't intervene much. I also allow people to just continue. So if you don't like their viewpoint, there's a viewpoint outside in the world. So you can agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. But the whole point is to let everyone know that there's a different perspective and opinion out there, because they are from a different region, different ideology, different religion, different race, or whatever. So that's why I actually like the idea of open mic, because I personally also get to see all kind of different sort of opinions and views, and sometimes it's very surprising, the kind of things that they see and know. And many of the people that has been on open mic are pretty much smarter than me. So anyway, hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the next update. Bye-bye.